out in St. Kitts. Overall, though, how was it?
I had a great time. I mean, finishing on the money bubble is obviously not the desired result when you play a tournament, but St. Kitts was almost like a fantasy tournament. You know, it was on an island. There was a bunch of amateurs. The ratio between pros and amateurs was great. Bellagio is like kind of coming back to the real world. I mean, Bellagio has always been the kind of mecca poker and tournament poker, and everyone is here playing up to be an extremely tough event.
Yeah, this is the second day of competition. 18 players have busted out already so far, 8 of whom have re-entered for a total of $200,000. We have 4 tables in action right now, but let's focus in on the feature table where we have just one amateur, Scott Henry, the doctor, and faces who are familiar to you, Olivier.
Yeah, this is an incredibly tough table. 2 guys I just want to focus on real briefly. Dan Coleman probably had the best year anyone's ever had in live tournaments in 2014. And Ben Tollerine, someone that the viewers might not be as familiar with, but an incredibly skilled and talented player, plays mostly on the internet.
Let's take a look at the chip leaders at the table. Up top, Noah Schwartz with over 1.1 million.
Yeah, Noah's been around for many years. He has a lot of experience, and he knows how to build stacks.
And Jake Schindler, second in chips with about 736,000.
Jake is a little bit newer to this scene of live tournament poker. He's been playing poker for a long time. I've played with him a bunch, and I think he's a really talented, really tough player.
Well, let's send it right down to the action. Blinds are 4 and 8,000. Ante is 500, and Noah with ace-jack will raise it up, making it 21,000 to go. Fold it over to Dan Coleman, and Dan's got ace-king.
Yeah, big hand here for Dan. Likely of 3-betting.
And he makes it 50,000 total.
And Dan's in one of those rare but really great spots in terms of an overall live tournament dynamic. He's been running so well and playing so well that it also intimidates his opponents. They don't play as well against him, and you kind of create this virtuous circle where you really get the best of both worlds.
Action folded back around to Noah. And Noah's going to make the call for 29 more.
Yeah, I don't love Noah's call here with ace-jack after raising pre-flop.
Oh, well, why not? He hit a jack-high board. Easy breezy.
This is a pretty good flop for ace-jack.
Schwartz checks it over to Dan.
Yeah, very lucky flop for Noah, obviously.
Dan gonna follow up with a bet of 60,000 into the pot of 116.
And when Dan decides to continuation bet with ace-king here, my sense is that Dan is not gonna just give up if he gets called once. Noah's likely to have a lot of pocket pairs, 8s, 9s, 10s, and those hands are never gonna fold to just one bet.
Yeah, Noah makes the call, and the turn card, the deuce of diamonds. Schwartz checks again.
I think if Noah had a hand like 2 8s or 2 9s, he would definitely consider folding if Dan bet again, but I think with ace-jack, I can't imagine Noah folding to a second barrel.
Well, it's 160,000 to call, Olivier.
That's a big bet. Dan basically playing his hand as if he had 2 aces or 2 kings instead of ace-king. Very reasonable way to play this hand, but also obviously very aggressive.
Noah not buying it. He makes the call, and we go to the river, which is the 9 of diamonds. 3 to a flush out there. Action on Noah.
All in.
And he moves all in.
Wow, that was definitely not what I expected. That's kind of a strange play.
Yeah, Dan laying it down, and Schwartz taking the pot in somewhat unorthodox and unconventional manner.
Yeah, that's a strange play from Noah. I mean, it's definitely not a value bet all in there with just ace-jack. I think he was using his ace of diamonds as a blocker to the nut flush, and when that third diamond came, he wanted to put pressure on Dan there. But I think, honestly, ace-jack is just too strong of a hand to turn into a bluff there. He's a little bit lucky that Dan didn't have a hand he could call with.
No, you can go for a million. I mean, SpaceX has some things, and Virgin Galactica.
Never done this.
But I'm not going to be the first one to go, though. I'm going to wait to see if anything explodes or anything.
Noah's got his sights set on the stratosphere, and his stack is trending in that direction after taking that pot from Dan Coleman. And there's Ben Tollerine. He wears his sunglasses at night, raising it to 20,000 with queen 10 offsuit. Action over to Alec Torelli in the small blind with king queen off.
Yeah, Ben Tollerine is known for playing extremely high stakes, mostly heads-up poker on the internet, both No Limit Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha.
What'd you start with?
About 330, 340.
340.
Alec has been playing a lot of high-stakes live cash games in Macau. I would say out of the 2 players here, Alec has much more live experience, but Ben, being one of the best players on the internet, I think, is going to have a stronger fundamental and theoretical grasp of the game.
Well, Torelli has called 16,000. And he'll be heads up, heading to the flop, which is ace and a couple of jacks.
Check.
A little something for both players. They both have a good shot straight draw, but I would give the advantage to Ben. Just being in position, he's the type of player that's going to put a lot of pressure.
Yeah, Torelli has checked it over to Tallerine. 52,000 in the middle, and Ben fires a little under half of that.
Yeah, not a huge bet. I think this board is relatively dry.
Torelli makes the call with king high. Both players with a straight draw.
I like Alex's call. King high is going to be good against a lot of Ben's range, and obviously he does have some equity. If a 10 comes, he can make a strong hand.
Third jack on the turn.
Check.
Torelli checks again.
Both of their straight draws now become relatively irrelevant, as obviously any pair would make a full house and it would beat the straight.
Tallerine, not bashful. He fires a second bullet, 60,000.
So I think, you know, from Ben's point of view, he thinks that Alec could have a lot of small pairs, like 5s, 6s, and 7s, and he might be able to bully him off the hand.
And indeed, Torelli goes away with king high, and Tallerine takes it down.
Conservative fold there by Alec. I think Ben doesn't have that many value hands in his range. He probably has some aces, but probably no other pairs. So I might even consider calling there with king queen, but you definitely can't fault that fold. He didn't have a pair, and it was definitely the more conservative play.
Little fishy there.
And you hear Alec Torelli say, something was a little fishy there. Well, Alec, if only you knew. More action from Vegas straight ahead.
Alpha 8 is sponsored by ClubWPT.com. Fun, exciting poker you can play for free. Don't have dough for a high roller buy-in but still want to get in the game? Log on to ClubWPT.com and play for free. Become a VIP member and enjoy insider benefits, plus take a shot at a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes every month. Win at ClubWPT.com, but never lose a dime playing poker, guaranteed.
Welcome back to the Las Vegas Strip for the continuation of the WPT Alpha 8. Let's get right back down to our featured table. 8 players and $1.3 million in front of Noah Schwartz, your chip leader. But it's Jake Schindler, the new player who's also broken the 1 million chip barrier with $1,025,000. Recreational player Scott Henry with $148,000 on the short stack. Max Altergott with $166 on the other end of the spectrum. Blinds are still 4 and 8,000. Ante is 500. Schwartz on the button. Sorrell and Dan in the blinds, and there's Ben Tallerine, relative newcomer to our Alpha 8 events. Under the gun, first to act with pocket 4s, and he's gonna make it 20,000 to go.
So Ben is known for playing high stakes, Snowman Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha on the internet, and he's a heads-up specialist, and a lot of heads-up players tend to be a little bit more aggressive than other players in these live tournament settings. They're used to playing more hands and getting involved in more situations.
Not aggressive, Jake Schindler here. With pocket 8s, he just calls 20,000 versus the under the gun pre-flop raise. Heads up to the flop, which is ace, king, 10, a couple of clubs, and all overcards to each player's pocket pair.
Yeah, I would like a bet here from Ben. I mean, his hand's just a little bit too weak to just check it and give up. And
No, that's exactly what it looks like he's going to do, though, Olivier. Checking over to Jake, who checks behind him.
yeah, I mean, Jake doesn't love that flop, obviously, so he's going to try to get to showdown cheaply.
Does he love the turn?
Yeah, pretty good turn for Jake.
Set of 8s for Schindler, but it's Tallerine who's betting 35,000.
And you know, Ben, I think now, after Jake checks the flop, he thinks that Jake has a hand kind of like he does. It's hard for him to think that Jake has exactly 2 8s and is improved, but this bet would probably get through if Jake only had 6s or 7s.
Instead, Schindler just calling. You think he's worried that perhaps Tallerine flopped a huge pot, and that's why he checked on the flop?
No, I think Jake is just playing his hand relatively passively, but kind of standard the way most players would play his hand.
River card is a jack, changing things a bit. Anyone with a queen will now have the nuts. An ace-high straight. Tallerine checks.
His check is basically a give up, and I think Jake at this point, after Ben checks, knows that Ben doesn't have a queen and can try to bet for value here.
With 126,000 in the middle, Jake fires 44,000.
Kind of a small bet, hoping to get called by like 2 pair, but obviously Ben with just 2 4s.
Tallerine with the easy fold, and Jake Schindler will take the pot. Meanwhile, over at the outer table, we have a situation developing between 2 players who have a lot of history. Scott Seaver is all in with pocket jacks. He's got top set, 3 diamonds out there, several cards to a straight, and Daniel Cates is faced with a big decision for his entire stack. He's got top pair, top kicker.
I'm trying to think what I could have had that. I'm so lucky. I just had no idea. I just randomly clicked it and found it.
Because my hand is just like insane out here.
What do you have?
It was ace two set.
I'm probably not going to
So
fold.
it was a
And I have ace of diamonds too.
old guy that
Yeah, there's been quite a rivalry that's developed over the past few years between Dan and Scott. And Scott, the type of player who likes to add fuel to the fire by talking to his opponents during some of these critical tension-filled moments.
Yeah, not a lot of pros on the circuit do this, but Seaver is one of them.
I call.
Kate says he'll call.
Wow, you're so good.
Seaver snap rolls over the pocket jacks, and Kate's disgusted.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a tough call for his tournament life there, and Scott obviously with top set, very happy to get called.
Way to go, Scott. Thank you, Dan. You up here is so often, right? Yes.
Kate's inquiring about re-entries. He was the Alpha 8 champion in Johannesburg, and he'll take some red wash, but I suspect he's going to reach for another 100,000. We'll find out as he talks to our Lynn Gilmartin.
Well, Jungle Man, you busted just in time with the re-entry period. Are you going to buy back in?
Yep, that's the plan.
That's the plan? Was that always going to be the plan, or is it...
Pretty much always the plan.
Yeah. Did it affect your play, knowing that you could have another go? Could you go a little bit more wild?
Actually, no, it didn't.
No?
No, I just made what I thought was the best play, and he had the nuts, and I had a big hand, but I didn't win. And he thinks he got me or something.
Oh, so you kind of want to get it back
It's
off
so
him?
stupid because I just know that his plan is not to bluff me. He just had it.
Oh, and he did? He bluffed you?
He didn't bluff me.
Oh, he didn't bluff you,
No,
sorry.
he just had the nuts, and I had a big hand.
Oh, okay.
And
So now you're ready to go get the chips back off him?
I mean, hopefully. It's hard when people just do that to you.
Yeah. Do you get frustrated by that? Or it's okay, you can just let it go?
A little bit frustrating briefly.
All right, fair enough. Now, what would be your dream table with your new seat? If you could pick any of the tables?
Honestly, that same spot.
Really?
Yeah.
You liked it?
Yeah.
No wonder he's coming back. All right, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen.
If that's the mildly frustrated version of Daniel Cates, I'd hate to see the very frustrated one as we send it back over to the feature table.
18.
Fold it around to Sorel Mitzi, who makes it 18,000 to go with King Queen suited. Dan Coleman with ace-10 offsuit in the small is going to defend. And another 10K for Ben Tollerine if he wants to join the party with 9-5 suited.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy call for Ben, getting a great price. He caps the action from the big blind, and his hand has plenty of equity.
Yeah, he ticked will attend on that Evite. And now 3 players head to the flop. 2 4s and a 3 with a couple of clubs out there. Dan Coleman with the best hand checks.
And out of the 3 players, Dan is the most likely player to have the strongest hand on a dry board like this. The small blind is the toughest position to play, and people play the narrowest range of hands from that position.
Yeah, Ben checked behind Dan, and now Sorel is going to fire a continuation bet, 19,000.
Yeah, Sorel, showed aggression pre-flop, and he's just trying to take the pot down.
But this is a different situation than being heads up.
Yep, he's against 2 of the 2 opponents, but this board is, 2 4s and a 3 is just not particularly likely to help either of his opponents. I mean, Dan could have a pocket pair, but...
But conversely, it's also not likely to help him as we see Coleman make the call.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dan knows how wide Sorel raises from the button from, and ace-10 he probably feels is just too strong to fold, and he might try something later on in the hand to win the pot if he doesn't improve.
After a 6 hits the turn, both players check, and now a king on the river gives Mitzi the best hand. Coleman checking.
Dan hoping that Sorel gives up and that his ace-10 is good enough to just win in showdown. Obviously, Sorel not going to check back after hitting a king on the river.
Yeah, he fires 62-5, and what do you do if you're Dan Coleman?
I'm all in.
Whoa.
Wow, Dan Coleman check raising all in.
That's a strange play from Dan.
Now, what sort of line is this representing?
He's representing very few hands, maybe pocket 6s, maybe pocket 3s. It's very hard for Dan to have a 4 here since he called from the small blind, so I really actually don't like this play.
Mr. Coleman, you're not repping much, bro. Not calling many 4s out of the small blind.
Yeah, Sorel knows he's not repping much.
3s. You don't have a king. That is a very, very strange move.
This is the process that professionals go through when they're making decisions like this. They have to try to put their opponent on a hand, or at least a range of hands, and try to assess a frequency to those hands. And there aren't many good hands, very strong hands that Dan will play in this way. And Dan has a reputation definitely more than capable of making a bluff in a situation like this.
This call is for all of Sorrell's chips, and he's going to make it.
You have it.
It's 10.
Ace 10.
Even though Dan doesn't represent a lot of hands, you have to remember, this is a $100,000 buy-in tournament. Sorrell's making a decision for his tournament life. When you just have a pair of kings and your opponent check raises all in on the river, no matter what the situation is, it's not easy to make that call.
Yeah,
so you really got to give Sorrell credit.
In terms of a cash game, it's like making a $100,000 call on the river.
I gotta do that every now and then, you know?
You're a sicko, yeah. I mean, you have to. It doesn't make any sense, but you know that I know it doesn't make sense. I mean, if I don't have a king, I have to hold.
Up next, plenty more high-stakes action from Bellagio. Welcome back to the Las Vegas Strip for the continuation of the World Poker Tour Alpha 8. During the break, we lost our only recreational player at the featured table, the doctor, Scott Henry, who went flatline after taking ace-jack up against Ben Tollerine's ace-queen. Both players fought the ace, but Henry was unable to improve, and he said goodbye with no signs of re-entry. Meanwhile, Daniel Cates, Jungle Man, had asked to be reseated with Scott Sieber for a shot at revenge, but instead, we welcomed him to a table replete with the likes of Antonio Esfandiari, JC Tran, Eric Seidel, and Talal Shakurchi, a real minefield. And courtesy of some rebalancing, Jason Les is going to be joining the feature table. And believe it or not, Jason Les is already on his second bullet after having hopped in a car from California not long ago.
I saw on the updates that in the first level there was like 30 people who entered, whatever. And I was friends here and I heard about how great it was. So I was at a coffee store in Costa Mesa when I saw this, got my coffee, went home, packed a bag in 5 minutes, and was on the road. So I went straight from Costa Mesa to the Valley to right here.
Les started playing poker at UC Irvine. He actually graduated with a computer science degree, was going to be a software engineer, but he knew he loved poker too much to do that.
Jason is on his second bullet, so that drive from Costa Mesa looks like it's been a pretty expensive one so far.
Les certainly not out of it here. He brings $690,000 in chips to the table. Max ALTERGOTT is inheriting short stack duties, courtesy of Henry's bust out, while Noah Schwartz is still your chip leader. Let's get back to the feature table. Alec Torelli folded King-Jack offsuit under the gun somewhat conservatively, and after a few more folds,
I'm out of here.
action comes down to the button of Dan Coleman, and you wonder whether or not he'll even bother to look at his cards, right?
Yeah, Dan is known for playing very aggressively from the button. He's going to play a wide range. 10-8 offsuit, definitely going to be worth a raise.
Coleman makes it 20,000. Are there any two that wouldn't be worth a raise?
My guess is that Dan will play from this position maybe 70 or 80% of his opening range. So 10-8 offsuit fits comfortably there.
Ben folds a small blind, and Les will get his feet wet right away, defending from the big with A7 offsuit.
Yeah, so we have two very, very competent, very skilled heads-up players going against each other here.
And two queens and a king on the all-paint flop. Les checks the best hand. Over to Coleman, who fires 20K on the continuation. Jason, gonna make the call.
Pretty easy call here from Jason with ace high. Dan's gonna have a lot of hands that don't have pairs and that, you know, don't have too much equity, hands like this. So Jason with ace high is usually gonna check and call and see what develops.
3 on the turn draws a check out of both players, and now the river card gives Dan Coleman the best hand. Jason checks again, however, and Dan comfortable to check behind him and roll over the winner. Unfortunate river card there.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Dan decided to check that river 8. I mean, when Jason checks all 3 streets, he's likely to have ace high or maybe a small pocket pair, and I think Dan should at least consider going for value there with an 8.
Let's head over to the outer table where we find Doug Polk faced with a decision after Kerry Katz moves all in with King-Queen top pair on the turn.
Doesn't seem like much of a decision to me.
No, bottom set for Doug, and he makes the call, leaving Kerry Katz drawing dead.
Yeah, Kerry, a regular in these high-stakes tournaments, actually himself puts on these one-day events that become very popular in the high-stakes community at the Aria. And Doug Polk, like I said, probably the best heads-up player in the world.
Well, the re-entry period is not over, so while Kerry Katz may have lost all his chips, he can always buy more. And I'm sure Lynn Gilmartin is going to ask him about that.
So how do you feel you've been playing?
Lousy.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm out. Yeah, I can't believe you're playing good.
It wasn't just luck that got in the way?
I don't know. If I'd let out on that hand, I might have. I think it ends up the same way. I hit top pair, he hits bottom set. I think I'm going broke. So.
Okay. Now, if you could pick any table out there, which one would you prefer to be on?
Same table, because
Yeah?
yeah, they know I'm aggressive now, and maybe they'll call me when I have a hand.
Ah, okay. He set up his image. It's a big part of poker. And then you can try and get those same chips back, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, good luck, Gary. Thank you.
So Kerry makes his way over to the registration table for a re-entry, and we get back over to our feature table, where the button is on Sorel Mizzi, Dan Coleman and Ben Tollerine in the blinds. Jason Less, who lost just moments ago with ace high against Dan Coleman, under the gun, lays it down. Alec Torelli with pocket sixes makes it 20 to go.
I don't know.
Ace jack off suit now for Noah.
I think Noah has two legit options. I mean, he can definitely call here with ace-jack. A lot of players like to 3-bet this hand to an early position raise.
You feel pressure to be more aggressive when you've got the big stack?
Yeah, I mean, some pressure, but really just strategically it also makes sense. I mean, each additional chip is worth less, so you can afford to take more risks.
And that's exactly what Noah's doing, making it 55,000 total. Folded back around to Alec.
And Alec is counting out his chips. I've seen him do that and then move
Yeah,
in.
it looks like a call almost when you're seeing him count it out, or maybe a motion toward the pot, but
Yeah, I mean, you see the players get up, and that's because this level is ending and the players are about to go on a break. And sometimes in this type of situation, when it's the last hand before a break, players tend to play a little bit different from how they would otherwise play. Alec's starting the hand with, I think, close to 50 big blinds. So a move all in here would be pretty aggressive.
Go all in.
And that's exactly what Alec does.
And I think part of this play is motivated by the end of the registration and rebuy period.
Looked like you were gonna fold, and then you just decided that you can rebuy, right?
And Noah's asking whether or not Alec was aware that he can still rebuy at this point, trying to figure out if that played a part in this
Yeah,
move.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that everybody knows that. And Noah here thinking about calling, I think, is mostly posturing. I don't think he's going to call 50 big blinds with ace-jack. I mean, if he ever were, this would be the spot because he expects, you know, Alec to be a little bit weaker than average. But in general here, I just can't imagine Noah calling such a big bet with just ace-jack offsuit, especially against an early position raise and then 3-bet all in.
You look back at your cards, you're like, I'm just gonna go all in.
Alec is known for being aggressive free flop, but this would not be a good play, even though we know it would be a flip.
And he said he got 2 outs, it must mean he got a pair.
And sure enough, Noah throws it in, and Torelli takes the last pot of the round.
All right.
Guys, break time starts now.
Oh, thank you so much for not starting it. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, if you told me you weren't gonna start it, I would have taken a little more time. Damn it. I know, I'm supposed to call. Damn it.
Your secret is safe with us, Alec. So the registration period will come to an end as we send it to the break. Will we see any new faces? Well, we know one thing for sure. We're gonna find out what our champion will be taking home as we do a little math and calculate the prize pool. Stay with us. Welcome back to Las Vegas for the continuation of the World Poker Tour Alpha 8 event. 55 total entries have been tabulated, $100,000 the value of each. 44 total players started this event. Andrew Lichtenberger marks the last player to buy in. He actually busted yesterday. After a good night's sleep, decided he would come back and pony up another $100,000. He takes a seat at one of our outer tables next to Noah Schwartz, who has been relocated to that same table after being at the feature table. And we head now to one of our other outer tables where we find the Brit, Talal Shakirchi, who cashed third in the Alpha 8 London non-televised event, in for his last $10,000 up against Dan Smith. Both players make a pair of nines, but Smith has Talal outkicked, and Shikerchi busts.
Talal is an incredibly smart and successful guy and has developed a real passion for poker. We've seen him on a lot of the events over the last few years. Over at St. Kitts, I was able to spend a little bit of time with him, played at his table for a little while, and he's actually donates some of his time and money to outside causes.
Sitting at an Alpha 8 table, hedge fund manager Talal Shikerchi has one goal, taking all the chips. But once he's collected his winnings, it's a good bet that he'll be giving some of it away.
It does seem to be more of an interest in philanthropy amongst poker players. Poker's about risk and reward, and top poker players understand the trade-offs, where it's difficult perhaps for a lot of people involved in charities themselves to make that trade-off. That kind of perspective is a good thing to bring to philanthropy, as well as obviously the money poker players could bring.
Two-time champ Philip Gruesome realised that there's great value in sharing his substantial poker earnings with charities around the world.
I think for me, my mind changed when I had everything I wanted, you know. When I discovered, okay, I want to give something back, I felt like, hey, this is the next step to be even more happy.
Recently, Phil and poker pals Igor Kurganov and Liv Bory created Raising for Effective Giving, or REG. The charity, based on effective altruism, encourages poker players to make a positive impact. What does effective altruism mean?
The idea that when you have a limited amount of funds to donate to charity, then you want to donate it in a way that has the maximum impact, that achieves the desired goal, which is to reduce as much suffering in the world as possible. So getting the maximum bang for your buck.
Turns out, for some pros, the return on charitable investments can help their poker game as well.
After playing 5-6 years, felt a bit like my motivation went down. And this definitely helped me to pick it up again, since I wasn't just playing for myself, but I was playing as well for many people that I could then help out with the money with.
Well, let's face it, Olivier, having a bankroll and keeping your money is essential to being a successful poker player, but in spite of that, it's nice to see people placing an emphasis on giving back.
Yeah, it's one of those trends that have swept the poker world in the last few years, especially among the young players. It's great to see that, you know, when they hit a big score and win a tournament, that they set some of that money aside and, you know, give it away, donate it to charity.
Yeah, worthy of note, the World Poker Tour Foundation has been around for several years and is just one of the ways in which the WPT helps give back to several different charities. You talked about big scores, Olivier. Let's take a look at this one. 2.1 million plus going to the champion here in Las Vegas. Top 6 places are going to be paid a piece of that over $5,395,000 collected here at Bellagio, but it's tough to imagine Antonio ESFANDIARI laying claim to any of that prize money. He is all in with Queen Jack up against Bryn Kenny's Ace Jack. Antonio cannot hit a queen on the end to make the best hand, and he is going to leave $200,000 behind here in Vegas to bring his career investment total in Alpha 8 to over $1.1 million.
Yeah, but how many cashes does he have, Ali?
Oh, none.
Oh, that's tough.
Arlen Gilmartin joins Antonio now.
Oh, right after the registration period closes, you're leaving us.
It wasn't
What
my
happened?
tournament.
It wasn't your tournament? You weren't feeling it?
No, I was feeling it. I
You
just
were?
didn't. I lost a massive flip against Bryn, and you know I had to win that to have a shot. You have to win the flips.
You do have to
Sometimes
win.
you flip good. Sometimes you flip bad.
That's poker.
That's poker.
Do you feel like you're playing good?
Yeah, I played all right. I played great.
Mhm.
You know, but what can I do?
What can you do?
Can't control the outcome of the flip.
You
Heads or tails,
cannot.
but you can't pick, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the good news is, well, it's not good news that he's walking out, but he is walking out in some really fine shoes, may I say. I am loving those shoes.
They're awesome. They're super comfortable.
They
Like
are.
the shoes?
I really dig the shoes.
They match your dress. I did that on purpose.
They do. Can we swap? Let's swap.
You can have them.
Yeah, thanks. Right. Great to see you as always, Antonio.
Thank you.
Well, it's going to be a long, but no doubt fashionable walk back to Antonio's car.
Getting a big hand in Vegas is every poker player's dream. Now you can take the fun of Hold'em anywhere you go with Club WPT Express Poker. Grab your iPhone and download Club WPT Express Poker from the App Store. It's fun and free. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and play.
Welcome back to WPT Alpha 8, where during the break we saw a couple of casualties. Dan Smith took his ace-jack up against jungle man Dan Cates' ace-king and was shown the door. And Pratush Budiga had 2 9s up against Brian Rass' pocket kings, and he said goodbye as well. We are now down to just 30 players, a total of 4 tables, and Sean Winter is joining us at the feature table. Hailing from Jacksonville, Florida, what else do we know about this kid?
Honestly, I don't know too much about Sean. I know that he is an aggressive player, pretty loose, likes to make some 3 and 4 bets pre-flop, but besides that, I don't have that much information on Sean. I guess we'll have to wait and see how he plays.
Yeah, we do know that this is his very first super high roller event as he takes his seat. Max Altergott, still the short stack in these 8. Jake Schindler with the chip lead at 839,000. Blinds are at 5 and 10. The ante is at 1K. Alec Torelli, who has 444,000 in chips, takes a pass with 7-8 suited. He plays pretty conservatively up front.
I think it depends on the situation. I think this is a particularly tough table, so from early position, Alec's going to play pretty conservative, but I've seen Alec make some very, very aggressive plays.
Queen 8 suited in the hijack for Sean Winter, and he's going to make it 22,000 to go.
And this is, I think this is a fine open. I mean, I would definitely consider folding, but obviously this is not going to work as we see Sorrel with ace-king suited. It's not going to let this go.
No, 3-betting it to 55,000. Coleman out of the way on the button, and look at this, pocket aces for Ben Tollerine. He loves the action in front of him here. But do you slow play or do you come over the top?
I think from the small blind, you know, with an opener already, I think 4-betting is really the only realistic play. I think if he just called, it would be a little bit suspicious. He would allow Sean to enter the pot. He would be out of position throughout the rest of the hand. So I think whether he wants to bluff or if he has a hand like he does, a monster, I think 4-betting is definitely the play.
Yeah, he makes it 130,000 to go. He started the pot with 586,000, just a few thousand more than Sorrel Mizzi, who started the pot with 582. We see Sean Winter lay down.
How much are you playing, Ben?
About 550.
And does Sorrel really have anything to decide here?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's bad for Sorrel, but, you know, he's got ace-king suited. It's an extremely strong hand. Ben's an aggressive player, and we see he moves all in here. There's not too much he can do. It's really just a cooler.
And if you're Ben, you love hearing that all in. He has Sorrel crushed heading to the flop. 84% to win the pot to Sorrel's 15%.
Kind of have a good feeling about this one, but it's hard to beat aces with ace-king.
Yeah, this is one of the best spots to be in when you're all in with aces. A lot of times you're all in against another pair, and that pair has, you know, 2 solid outs to beat you, but it's very tough for ace-king to beat aces. With this particular case, Sorrel is suited, so a flush is really his best chance.
I think you got this.
I think clubs look pretty hot right now.
Yeah.
And here comes the flop. It's all clubs, and Sorrel has flopped the nut flush. Ben Tollerine is going to need runner to make a full house, or he is going to be down to practically nothing.
Yeah, if it were spades, it would be like, I'm dead. Don't pair the board.
The turn card doesn't pair the board, which means Ben cannot make a full house to beat Sorrel's flush.
It's weird, because normally I'd be like, there would be some anxiety before.
The river card is inconsequential, and that is a disastrous turn of events for Ben.
How does he do it?
It's a little bit of an overkill, but I'll take it, I guess. That's pretty sick.
I got 585, Sorrel.
Yeah, very unlucky for Ben Tollerine, obviously, but at the same time, you know, Sorrel and Ben both have very strong hands. It's really just a cooler. The fact that Sorrel got very lucky with ace-king doesn't mean that much. It's really that they both had strong enough hands to get all in, and Sorrel was the one who ended up on top.
Going clubbing tonight.
And it's important to note, Ben and Sorrel had very similar chip stacks going into this hand. So, you know, Ben is still going to be alive, but he's going to be almost decimated. You know, he's going to have just a few thousand left.
Devastating turn of events for Tollerine. More action from Vegas up next.
Learn to play poker like our Alpha 8 high rollers for free at club.wpt.com, where VIP members can watch past episodes, read insider tips, and study up on the pros. Everyone has a chance to win a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes, only on club.wpt.com. So get in the game today.
It's all about getting in the game, as you know, Olivier, and the best way to do that is simply log on to clubwpt.com.
You hear us mention Club WPT all the time. If you're not familiar with the club, In a word, it's a website where you can practice your poker and play with your friends for free.
And if you really want to amp up your game, you can become a ClubWPT.com VIP member and enjoy a host of benefits, including watching past Alpha 8 episodes.
One of the best parts of playing poker is winning. And at ClubWPT.com, you can play for a part of the $100,000 in cash and prizes that are given away each month.
You can even win seats to big WPT events, so get to your computer and log on to ClubWPT.com. In the meantime, let's take a look at the prize pool for our record-breaking Vegas Alpha 8. First place is going to take home over $2.1 million, and the man currently laying claim to that at the feature table is the chip leader, Sorel Mizzi, with $1.164 million. The blinds are at 5 and 10,000. The ante is $1K. Jake Schindler under the gun. He looks at Jack 10 suited and pops it to 20,000.
Yeah, this is probably one of the worst hands that Jake raises with under the gun, but I think it's strong enough and plays well post-flop.
Well, you certainly know it's a far better option than limping in with it.
Yeah, you're not going to see too many of these players limp in at this stage.
Ben Tollerine, with just 2,000, decides why not with 10-8 offsuit.
Yeah, he basically has to do that with every single hand he's dealt. The ante is just too big. He can't wait another hand.
Folded around to Max Altergott. He's in the big blind with king-queen offsuit.
This is a nice-looking hand for Max. It's probably one of the best hands he's been dealt all day, but I still don't think this is an all-in. I think he could just call from the big blind and see a flop.
It looks like Altergott disagrees with you, Olivier. He's going to ship in his remaining 105,000. Could have just called for 10K.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a good play because Jake only has Jack 10 suited, but against Jake's under-the-gun opening range, I think this is just a call. I don't like this play.
Just couldn't get away from Jack 10 suited there, you know?
Two players' tournament lives at risk right now. Here comes the flop. It's ace 10 deuce. Jake Schindler's pair of tens with the jack kicker, the best hand. But Altergott has a Broadway draw. He's hoping Jake hits his jack. That, of course, would give Max the ace-high straight. Ben showing disinterest here. The turn card is a deuce. That pairs the board and updates the percentages. You see that there is now a 63% chance that Jake and Ben will actually split the main pot. And Max needs a king, queen, or a jack on the river. Instead, it's the 9 of clubs. And Max Altergott has been eliminated, leaving Jake Schindler to take the full side pot and split the main with Ben Tollerine.
Don't call it a comeback.
600.
So the German Max Altergott, who was card dead all day, says auf Wiedersehen, leaving 29 players to do battle for the over $5 million in prize money. Who will wear the crown and become champion here at our record-setting Alpha 8 event? Find out as you join our journey. Plenty more high-stakes action remains. On behalf of Lynn Gilmartin and Olivier Bousquet, I'm Ali Najad, saying so long from Bellagio.
Outside, the fountains of Bellagio welcome everyone to Las Vegas, but entry inside our poker room takes nerves of steel and $100,000. This is WPT Alpha 8. The glamorous Las Vegas Strip, home to the opulent, award-winning resort, Bellagio. This world-famous destination has made a name for itself as the epicenter for high-stakes poker in Las Vegas. And tonight, we are going to see those who have taken a huge financial risk in hopes of winning the lion's share of the over $5 million prize pool. Players in tonight's event were required to pay $100,000 if they wanted to compete. At this point in the game, registration is closed. There are no more lifelines. Everyone you see bust out tonight will go home broke. On deck to share their keen insight and expert analysis, poker commentator extraordinaire Ali Najad and high-stakes pro Olivier Bousquet. They are up in the club WPT.com skybox. Hi, guys.
Hey, Lynn, a pleasure to be with you as always, especially here on the Las Vegas Strip. As you mentioned, the epicenter of poker, and there's been a lot of high-stakes seismic activity to this point. In this record-setting Alpha 8 of ours, we had 44 players total, 55 entries, a prize pool of over $5 million and over $2.1 million going to first place. It's kind of a minefield of 20-somethings out there right now, though, Olivier. Youth is the story.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredibly tough field. Especially in the context of these super high rollers where you tend to see, a number of wealthy amateurs also join the field. Here it's like every tough pro is in the field and still alive. You have guys like Cyril Mitzi, who's built up a huge stack, and he's already one of the toughest players in the field. So when he has a lot of chips, he's very dangerous. Noah Schwartz, we saw build up a big stack. Dan Coleman, who's on the heater of a lifetime, still alive and always a dangerous threat.
Still have 4 tables in action at this point in time. And I want to turn our attention to Ben Tollerene, one of a handful of players who we've never seen at an Alpha 8 event, who's ponied up not $100, but $200,000 total, and yet sits on just $13,000 in chips. That's not a reflection of the quality of his play, though, is it?
No, I mean, Ben Tollerene's not as familiar to some of the, some of our viewers because he hasn't played that much live poker. But when it comes to like poker mind or poker IQ, Ben is really at the highest level you can get. He's extremely short stacked. He got very unlucky losing with pocket aces to Cyril's ace king suited, but he still does have some chips, which, as we all know, gives him some life. So we'll have to see if he can double up a couple of times and give himself a chance.
Yeah, he's definitely looking for a miracle. In for $200,000 total and sitting on just about $13,000. Here's a look at the current chip counts, 1.1 million and change for Cyril Mitzi. The ante is 1,000. The blinds are 5 and 10,000. Button's gonna be on Jake Schindler. Sean Winter, who was a late addition to the lineup, is in the small blind, and Cyril is in the big blind. Get the action underway with Dan Coleman under the gun, and he'll lay down his king deuce. And really not much of a decision here for Ben, is there? He's got to move all in with the antes where they are.
He just has just over 1 big blind, so he's actually probably happy to get 8-6 suited. It's a hand that has decent equity and definitely will have a chance no matter what it's up against.
Yeah, well, better than decent equity is how you can describe ace-jack suited for Alec Torelli, who makes it 30,000 total to go.
And if I were Alec, I would probably kind of ignore Ben's all-in, knowing he's got to do it with almost every hand he's dealt, and just treat my ace-jack like a normal raise.
Folded around to Sean Winter, his first ever Alpha 8 appearance, just 24 years old. He calls Jacksonville, Florida home.
You had like 4? I think I have 450.
His first ever super high roller event. He's got ace-8 offsuit and doesn't appear to be ready to lay it down.
No, I think most of the time ace-8 in the small blind is just a fold, but looks like Sean's deciding to play this aggressively, trying to isolate the all-in player. In this case, the all-in player is all in for so little money that I don't think there's that much value in doing this. When you look at Cyril just with king 2 offsuit is kind of suspicious of Sean's play. His hand was so bad, but he was just considering making another play just to try to isolate what he thought was a lot of dead money in the pot. And to be honest, he was right.
Instead, he's out of the way, and that allows Alec Torelli to make a call for another 45,000. 2 players in for the side pot, Ben in for the main and the flop. 10-3-4 with a couple of clubs.
You see Ben eye the flop, see his flush draw, and then just go right back to his phone.
Yeah, not looking to give anything away, although he's unlikely to influence any of the remaining action here. Sean Winter with a continuation bet on the 10-high board that includes a couple of clubs.
Yeah, Sean does flop the backdoor nut flush draw with his ace of clubs, and Alec, really just ace high, no diamonds on the board. It's hard for him to continue. He's not going to like it when he sees that Sean has a worse hand, but not much he can do there.
Yeah, Sean rolls over his ace-8. Alec a little bit disgusted, and you see Ben not too big a dog against this ace-8, 47% to 52%.
Ironically, Ben would have had a better chance against Alec's hand than he does against Sean, since his 8 is dominated, but still in decent shape to more than triple up, more than quadruple up here.
Well, the queen of diamonds isn't going to cut it, Olivier. Here comes the river, though. Ben's looking for a club or a 6 on the end, and he gets it. The 7 of clubs, breathing new life into Tollerene.
Ben's going to more than 4x his stack here, as he only had just over 1 big blind to start the hand. So, yeah, when you go on this little mini run starting from no chips, you always develop that hope that it can turn into something huge, that you could make a story and win the tournament.
Well, it's still an uphill climb for Ben. Under the gun this time around, but with considerably more chips.
Yeah, Ben just over 5 big blinds to start this hand. I think a lot of people would just instantly go all in when they see an ace and they have 5 big blinds. Ben, though, the consummate professional, incredibly disciplined fold there. Just knowing the math and knowing that even though he's a very short stack, ace-3 offsuit with all these players behind him is just not good enough, and he's patient enough to wait it out and see if he can get a better situation.
Jake Schindler, meanwhile, will open the action with a raise to $22,000. The 25-year-old pro calls Hollywood, Florida home. You may recognize that town. Also home to Jason Mercier, a familiar name here on the tour. This is Jake's first Alpha 8 appearance, and he is going to be heads up in position against Dan Coleman, the intimidating professional who has Queen Jack suited and has flopped a flush draw. 2 kings and a 5 with a couple of clubs. Dan checks it. Jake seizing the opportunity to fire a continuation bet of $21,000.
I might have actually checked back here if I were Jake with Queen 10. It's got some showdown value and not too much equity, but he decides to continuation bet. Dan not going anywhere, of course, with his flush draw.
4 of hearts, a blank to both players, and Coleman, who has over $22.8 million in live tournament earnings, casually checks it over to Jake, who has $3.7 million in live tournament earnings of his own, and checks back.
Jake doesn't improve and decides not to go for it again.
Now the 6 of hearts on the river.
I think Dan has 2 options here. He can check and hope Queen high is good, or he can just try to bluff with it.
Check.
He decides to check. And Jake looks like he sees this as an opportunity to try to bet. Knows that he can't win in showdown, or assumes he can't win in showdown, that Dan either has a hand like ace high or maybe a 5, maybe pocket 3s.
But what is Jake representing here? I mean, the line is so suspect.
I mean, he could have 2 7s maybe. I mean, I think he would probably bet the turn with 2 7s. He could have rivered a 6. It's a little bit suspicious of a bet, but it's tough for Dan to just to call with Queen high.
Try telling that to Dan Coleman. He casually deposits $42,000 in the middle and shows Queen Jack over Queen 10. That's playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to look very odd to some people that he just called with Queen high, but at the end of the day, what Dan's hand is it's a bluff catcher. It's not too different from ace queen or from, 5-4. He knows that he beats almost all of Jake's bluffs. If Jake had ace high or a pair, he probably wouldn't feel the need to bluff. So his hand, if he's right that Jake's bluffing, he'll be able to call and win. It looks a little strange, and sometimes he'll look silly because Jake is actually value betting or potentially bluffing with a worse hand. But that's one of the things that makes Dan so dangerous. He's willing to trust his instincts and make a play that maybe most people wouldn't.
Yeah, this is Coleman's 3rd Alpha 8 appearance. He actually won the Season 2 London Alpha 8 title in his first ever appearance, good for $957,000 and change, and he was 9th in Season 2 at St. Kitts. Action folded around to Sorel Mitzi on the button with ace-10 offsuit. Pretty sure we know what he's going to do. And indeed, he raises it to $20,000. Easy fold for Dan Coleman. And action on Ben Tollerine, who started this pot with $64,000. Looks down at 8-6 offsuit. And he's going to make the call.
I started with 53 back, I think.
It's an interesting play here. He's obviously very, very short stacked, but getting a great price from the big blind.
Here comes the flop. It's Queen 9-7 rainbow. Open-ended straight draw for Ben.
Yeah, so this is kind of what he's looking for. All in. Some decent equity to just push the rest of his stack in.
And that's exactly what he does, Olivier, moving all in for $43,000.
Sorel, I think, rightly figures that the pot is so big and ace-10 has enough equity against Ben's range that he just has to call and either hope to get lucky or hope that he has the best hand. He actually does have the best hand, but obviously Ben, with a lot of equity, can hit an 8, a 6, a 5, or a 10.
I'm calling for you. This is going to be sick.
Yeah. You almost got a room for him. Come on. I'm almost rooting for him. Yeah. I mean, I kind of am.
Okay. Yeah, roughly a 3-2 favorite is Sorel.
He's going to come back and knock me out, I'm sure. Yeah. He's going to come back and win.
And here comes the turn. It's a 5 of clubs, no waiting for Ben Tollerine. He has iced this pot by making the straight. And he'll count his stack down and better than double up, Olivier.
You already booked a flight.
Probably not enough from Ben's point of view, having lost with pocket aces to Sorel's ace-king suited earlier for a much bigger pot, but a much-needed double up to give himself some life.
Well, Dan saying Ben had already booked a flight out of Vegas on his phone. Well, he's going to have to cancel that. Not time to pack his bags just yet. You know, I'm always amazed, Olivier, at the amount of poise that we see in these young players.
Yeah, I mean, I think people associate youth with inexperience, and You know, some of these players are playing at their local casinos or are traveling around in Europe where the age is lower to play. So even though a lot of these guys are young, a lot of them have played a lot of hands of poker. And I think over time, you just kind of develop this tolerance. You build up this sense of knowing the way luck plays a role in poker and getting used to the swings, and you just develop that sense.
Button on Torelli, Jake and Sean in the blinds, and Sorrell takes a peek at those tempting suited connectors, 7-8 suited under the gun.
A little bit of a loose open from Sorrell, but he does have a lot of chips and very dangerous player when he's got a big stack.
He likes being aggressive. 26,000 now, has over 100K in front of him, picks up ace-king offsuit and sends it to the center, all in.
Finally, Ben Tollerene gets dealt a good hand, is in a great position to double up here with ace-king.
Get through. Nothing wrong with that.
Folded around to Sean Winter, who showed a little bit of pause before turning his hand in. And
it's a good sign when asks how much.
Now Mizzy with 7-8 suited.
Yeah, he's got to call about 6 big blinds. He's already put in 2. He's getting about 2 to 1, so.
Any chance he can muck this?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely could. I think with his chip stack and getting the price that he is, I think it's pretty reasonable to call, but you could definitely fold 8 high.
That's not going to happen. Mitzi makes the call, and we're going to head to the flop. Ben in great shape here to hit effectively a third double up. Here comes the flop. 2 10s and an 8. Sorrell sucking out, making 2 pair, and Ben Tollerene is looking for an ace or a king to keep his tournament hopes alive on the heels of a quadruple up and a double up.
Couple backdoor draws for Ben as well, but it's not looking good.
No, and the 3 of spades means it's looking worse. And Ben Tollerene is looking for an ace or a king to keep his tournament hopes alive. Can he connect? No, he cannot. Instead, it's a 9 of clubs on the end. And the stack that was trending in the right direction is now vanished. Heading over in Sorrell's direction. Disappointing for Ben.
Yeah, I bet if you asked him, he would have preferred to just lose that first time instead of building that hope and then devastating it, especially when he had the best hand and gets unlucky there.
And Ben is going to leave behind $200,000 in Las Vegas, courtesy of his 2 entries. And the big stack continues to grow as Sorrell Mitzi, in his 4th Alpha 8 appearance, has designs on finally making the money.
Alpha 8 is sponsored by ClubWPT.com. Fun, exciting poker you can play for free. Learn to play poker like our Alpha 8 high rollers for free at ClubWPT.com, where VIP members can watch past episodes, read insider tips, and study up on the pros. Everyone has a chance to win a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes, only on ClubWPT.com. So get in the game today. Alpha 8 St. Kitts second place finisher Kathy Leaney was taken down by fearless pro Paul Volpe, who emptied another chair a few hands later when his pocket 9s held up against experienced amateur Larry Greenberg's pocket 6s.
It's a very unique thing that an amateur can come in and play with the best players in the world in anything. So it's an incredible opportunity to be able to do it, and I really enjoyed it. Hope to do it again.
And in another battle, high-stakes expert Tom Marchese's King Jack suited bested WPT champ JC Tran's pocket queens. Jason Kuhn had pocket kings, which were more than enough to take out his good pal Igor Kurganov. And finally, when entrepreneur Ray Faltinsky sent his King 8 up against Florida pro Noah Schwartz's Ace 8, the pro prevailed.
It's nice to come out and see how you stack up against some of the best players in the world. And even in the heat of battle, they're giving me tips and so forth. And that's great. It's a great way to learn.
With all the busts, the tables have now been rebalanced and we're ready for more action. So Ali and Olivier, where does that leave us?
Well, Lynn, it leaves us with 22 players remaining in the field, spread out across 3 tables. At our feature table, we have 2 new faces, Tom Marchese and Eric Seidel, Olivier.
Yeah, Tom, WPT champion and one of the most well-liked and respected players on the tour. And of course, Eric Seidel, Poker Hall of Famer, one of my favorite players to see at a tournament. I mean, he's one of the few players from the old school of the poker boom who, you know, continued to be successful and play at these high stakes, and he just oozes respect, humility. He's just, whether he wins or loses, he always gives credit to his opponents. I really admire and respect Eric a lot.
Eric brings 420,000 in chips to the table, while Tom brings 328,000. The blinds are at 8 and 16, the ante at 1,000.
That's like impossible.
Couple of folds in front of Sorel Mitzi, who has ace-8 offsuit, and the current chip lead, which he's putting to use in the form of a raise to 33,000. Now to Dan Coleman, who has ace-queen. Oh, and Coleman going all in here.
Yeah, an aggressive play from Dan, but I think it's pretty standard one. Probably the same play that I would make. Ace-queen offsuit. He could 3-bet with it, but I think jamming is fine with his stack, and Sorel just opening a lot of hands. I think it's pretty easy to jam this hand against this opponent.
And part of that is because he starts the hand with about 20 big blinds,
Yeah,
correct?
exactly, right.
Now, what do you do if you're Sorel? This is a big re-raise to be faced with.
I think it's a pretty easy fold.
You gonna put the dagger in me?
I might. Don't be so comfortable. I could be slow rolling you right now.
Even if Dan is bluffing with a hand like Jack-10 suited, you're still not really much of a favorite against that hand, and most of the time you'll just be dominated, so pretty easy fold from Sorel.
Sorel lays it down, and Coleman says, get out of here.
On my first bluff, and my first bluff through ever on me.
Yeah?
7-8 suited.
I was obviously good.
Nice.
Nice.
No.
What suit?
Diamonds.
Nice. I had an 8 of diamonds in hand.
Earlier this week, our Lynn Gilmartin had a chance to talk to Sorel about friendship in poker.
You all seem to be such good friends. How do you balance the notion that there are no friends at the poker table, yet they seem to be your best friends off the belt?
Yeah, you really just have to distinguish between the two.
The Mizzonator, ladies and gentlemen.
Like Antonio and I's relationship, I mean, I love the guy, but I just love, like, busting him. I love, like, more so than I do someone that is not my friend. We just love taking each other's money. Okay. And it is what it is. But then there's other guys who I'm closer with who, you know, there's a little bit of compassion that comes with it. We all understand that this is a game, and at the end of the day, like, we're all gonna die with money left over, hopefully. Maybe not me, who knows? But, you know, it's just a game, and we're all just doing what we love to do.
Olivia, you got a few friends out there in the poker community yourself. How key is that to being able to get through this stressful career?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sorel's right. I mean, at a certain point, you just kind of get over that. You just get used to it, and you develop this sense of being able to just distinguish your friendship from your actual play at the table. And it's not like you're trying to hurt your friends, you're just trying to make the best decisions. I mean, friends compete all the time, and they, you know, sometimes that friendship can fuel extra motivation to win. So in poker, I think it's no different.
Let's get back to the feature table. Action's on Tom. Marchese competing here with pocket threes, making it 35,000 to go.
Because it's so like energetic.
And the other new face at the table, Eric Seidel, takes a peek at hard 8, pocket fours. He's in the small blind here, already has 8,000 invested.
How was your play?
Asking Tom for a count.
I think I started with 327.
Seidel, 55 years young, let's call it. It's not so obvious what to do if you're Eric here. I mean, from the small blind, when Tom raises with just over 20 big blinds, it's really unclear. I think you could make an argument for folding with fours. You could try to make an aggressive play with fours, or I think calling is probably the more standard and conservative play, but it's not necessarily so obvious. It's always important to keep in mind the chip stacks of the opponents that you're playing hands against.
Seidel opting for the call. Jake Schindler laid down from the big blind, leaving the two new faces at the table to do battle, and the flop. Ace-6-4. Set of fours for Seidel, who checks it over to Marchese.
Yeah, obviously a huge hand for Eric here. Is praying that Tom has some sort of equity, either an ace or flush draw or something.
Marchese firing a continuation bet of 40,000 into the pot of 94, and Seidel min-raising.
Yeah, a little bit of an unorthodox raise. I would think with this board that Eric, if he wanted to raise, would tend to make a bigger raise, but decides to go with the min raise, maybe see if Tom is willing to make a play. But Tom, with an underpair to the board, doesn't have too many options and decides to just let it go.
Well, Seidel didn't pick up 8 World Series of Poker bracelets over the course of his career, making mistakes. 5th on the all-time money list with over $20.8 million in live tournament earnings. Straight ahead, more high-stakes action from Bellagio.
Mike, why is the Bellagio the epicenter of poker?
Well, Lynn, many players consider Bellagio the Rolls-Royce of poker rooms. Since its opening, they've had the highest stakes cash games. The inaugural event on the WPT was held right here at Bellagio. Welcome to the debut of the World Poker Tour. All players want to win events here at Bellagio because the tournaments are huge.
Did you ever imagine that one day we would have tournaments with a $100,000 buy-in price tag?
Well, it's really incredible, Len, no doubt about it. That's why players love it here at Bellagio, because when they have poker tournaments, it is big time, folks.
Big time indeed, Mike Sexton, as we get a look at the prize pool. Over $5.3 million collected, courtesy of 55 entries. And we're gonna make not one, but two millionaires, both first and second prize, better than $1 million. And that is a rarity in poker. Back to the feature table. Eric Seidel with an ace. Calm, cool, and collected sends it back into the muck. No temptation there. Sean Winter with Queen 7. Sean from Jacksonville, Florida. It just looks like he's in pain whenever he mucks, doesn't it?
I mean, it looked like a struggle to muck the Queen 7 off. I'm not sure what's so tough about that play, but...
Well, Sean wants to play, we know that much. Just hasn't had a lot of opportunities to, especially given his seat at the table. Tough players on his left, including Sorel Mitzi, who's got ace-3 offsuit and raises it up.
Interesting call here from Dan Coleman with just 2 8s on the button.
Yeah, why no 3-bet?
Maybe he just, he's comfortable playing in position post-flop.
Marchese folds a small blind, and Jason Less now with ace-king suited in the big blind.
I expect Jason to make a sizable 3-bet here.
How do you feel about 161,000?
I think he's made it bigger on purpose because he wants Dan to know that he's committed to Dan's stack and try to make sure that Sorel folds and he can be heads up with Dan. Easy fold for Sorel, of course, with the ace-3 off.
You have a really good hand, or 4-5 suited.
And you heard Coleman speculating as to Jason's holding.
Yeah, I mean, Dan knows that Sorel was in the pot too, so when Jason makes this play, he's making it against both players.
Yeah, Dan started this pot with 352,000.
And this is a really difficult decision for Dan.
I'm all in.
Oh, Dan's gone all in, Olivier.
Call.
And a snap call from Jason Less.
There's a lot of money in the pot here, and a lot of people would say, oh, I don't want to flip here at this point in the time in the tournament and wait for a better spot. But you have to remember, even if you're flipping here when you're with Dan's hand, there's a lot of chips already in the pot.
It's really rare that someone asks that before and then it goes all in. Dan's really good at these, by the way. He's really
Stop, man. Stop. Don't say that. Don't
Oh,
say
look
that.
at this flop, king high, disastrous for Dan Coleman. The turn, no help. He's looking for an 8, and instead it's a 4 on the river. And just like that, in a shocking twist, Dan Coleman says goodbye.
Yeah, it's a rare thing to see Dan Coleman bust a tournament these days, but it does happen.
And Coleman leaves behind 200,000. Courtesy of that inheritance, you are looking at your new chip leader, Jason Less. More action from Vegas straight ahead.
Las Vegas attracts the best poker players from around the world. And now you can play WPT caliber poker on your iPhone anywhere you go for free. Log on to the App Store to download Club WPT Express Poker. Remember, it's free and it's fun. Hope to see you in the game. Don't have dough for a high roller buy-in, but still want to get in the game? Log on to clubwpt.com and play for free. Become a VIP member and enjoy insider benefits, plus take a shot at a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes every month. Win at clubwpt.com, but never lose a dime playing poker, guaranteed.
Lynn's right, you don't have to have access to big money to enjoy playing poker. All you need is a computer and an internet connection to log on to clubwpt.com and play poker for free.
When you get right down to it, poker's a great game, no matter what the stakes. And clubwpt.com is a website that gives the opportunity to have fun, play poker with your friends, and hopefully improve your game, all from the comfort of your home.
Now, if you really want to have the full club experience, become a clubwpt.com VIP member and receive all kinds of exclusive benefits, including having access to great poker resources like old episodes of World Poker Tour and Alpha 8.
At clubwpt.com, you can play for a part of up to $100,000 in cash and prizes every month.
So what are you waiting for? Turn on that computer and log on to clubwpt.com and check it out. In the meantime, let's check out our prize pool. Over $5.3 million up for grabs. 6 places getting paid, with first taking home a cool $2.1 million. The new big stack at the feature table belongs to Jason Less. Sorel Mitzi still with over $1 million in front of him, and action has been folded around to Tom Marchese. He's in the cutoff.
On.
Marchese moving all in with King 10 offsuit.
How much is it?
I think it's 220.
Les folds on the button, and now Torelli wants a count. Tom from Parsippany, New Jersey. He's a World Poker Tour champion, currently living in Las Vegas, just 27 years of age.
Always one of the top players when he plays any tournament. It's a little bit of a suspect call here, I think, from Alec.
With ace-8 offsuit, yeah.
From the small blind, he's still got Eric in the big blind, and Tom's likely to have a pretty good hand.
It's hard to make the overcall with this, but I think I was calling.
Seidel folding with ace-9 offsuit after Torelli makes the call.
Thanks. You want to swap?
Nah, it's okay.
I mean, we have the same stack.
My phone's dead.
Nah, it's all right.
Okay. I was going to swap 2.5 with you.
It wouldn't be fair to you.
You notice that Marchese actually the favorite to win the hand based on cards that we've already seen. And here comes the flop. It's ace high. Torelli way out in front now. Marchese needs a lot of help in order to take this pot and stay alive. Oh, 10 on the turn.
That'll start.
There it is. It's a king.
Hey, Sam.
Runner, and Tom Marchese dealing a wicked blow to Alec Torelli's stack, who is now sitting on just 20,000 in chips, while Tom is up to 464.
Yeah, very unfortunate turn and river there for Alec, as his stack gets decimated to about just over 1 big blind.
Just painful. Jack-8 suited for Sean Winter, who's had all he can stand. He can't stand no more, and he opens this pot up with the raise.
It's a very odd raise under the gun 7-handed from Sean here. I mean,
38,000?
First of all, Alec is so short stacked that he's going to play most of his hands. The other players are going to see that Sean raised with this hand, and he's going to have to beat Alec's hand as well. So it's a little bit of a strange play, but maybe just some frustration from not getting a lot of good hands.
Yeah, Alec calling with his last 10K, sitting on queen deuce suited. Seidel mucked an ace pre-flop.
Yeah, I mean, from the small blind to Sean's, under the gun open, it's a pretty reasonable fold from Eric.
Action on Jake Schindler with 10-7 offsuit in the big blind.
So obviously 10-7, not a premium hand, but he's getting a great price, especially when you add in Alex's chip. So he's going to call and see a flop here.
Yeah, puts in the extra 22,000.
I need like 20. I think this is the right decision.
Here comes the flop. 2 9s and a 5. No pair anywhere. And believe it or not, Alec's queen high is currently out in front as 2 players still involved in the side pot, Sean Winter and Jake Schindler. Jake checks it to Sean, and Sean is going to fire. 30,000. Jake with the quick fold.
Jack 10.
That's good.
You have Jack 10? One time.
Winter takes the side pot, and Alec thrilled to see that his queen high is good.
I think I can win though.
I don't think so.
It's kind of ironic. Alex was hoping for Jack 10 because he thought that would be the worst hand that Sean would have in this spot, but Sean actually has a worse hand here with Jack 8.
I think 7's better.
Queen.
Here comes the turn. It's a trade.
Nice hand.
And Winter giving the premature nice hand to Alec.
Dead.
He could still hit a Jack or an 8 to win this pot, but no, it's a 3.
Don't call it a comeback.
And Torelli's not done just yet.
Nope, Torelli more than tripling up his stack.
No, I had 18,000.
What's the biggest comeback you've ever seen in a poker tournament, Olivier?
I was in a tournament where I think Jason Mercier came back from extremely, extremely short stack, ended up winning it, but I didn't
like
actually
less than 5
see
big
it.
blinds?
Yeah, something like that.
1 double up. That one's the big one.
That was nice.
Was that a bit of an oversight there by Sean pre-flop, not really realizing that he was going to have his hand turned up regardless, given Alec's situation?
I think so, yeah. I mean, there are definitely some hands that Alec could fold, but suited queen, probably not going to be one of them.
Wow, Jack 8 for the hold. Nice C-bet.
How good do you run? I have that hand.
Under the gun plus a C-bet. Jack 8, thank you.
Alec still marveling at his good fortune there, considering the circumstances he was in. Action folded around to Alec, who's got a little breathing room right now. He started the pot with 76,000, but certainly a lot of work cut out for him, and he's going all in again.
This is a fine play from Alec, starting the hand with just under 5 big blinds, but he could have waited and tried to get a better hand, but he's just, at this point, going to put his stack at risk and hope the next 3 players don't wake up with anything.
Well, Seidel's out of the way, but we're held up on Jake Schindler in the small blind with ace-4 suited.
Yeah, I don't love this call from Jake. I mean, I think he's unlikely to be a big favorite against Alec.
Yeah.
There's always Sean Winter in the big blind who's shown a lot of aggression in these types of spots. So I think you have to be a little bit extra careful if you're Jake from the small blind here.
Yeah.
King 8.
Glad you called.
Yeah, let's call Sean the Blizzard. He is creative and active, but he's going to sit this one out, leaving Schindler and Torelli to do battle. Jake, the favorite, heading to the flop with the ace.
Yeah, I think cut off there. I pretty much got a shove. I don't really love my hand, but just because if I let the blinds go around, it's pretty rough.
And that flop is Jack 7 Trey, the ace, still ahead, and Torelli's got his work cut out for him.
If I could hit an 8 then.
Looking for a king or an 8 on the turn. Instead, it's a 9.
10.
He can now hit a 10 to make a straight. Here comes the river card. Wow. It's a 3, and that's it for Alec Torelli.
See you guys. Take it easy. Good luck, everybody.
Who says goodbye and gets a dose of the red wash.
I'm sure he felt pretty comfortable after that ace-high flop, but Tom hitting 2 pair, and then now this hand ultimately leading to Alec's bust out. We're going to have to say goodbye to Alec Torelli.
Yeah, the 1-2 punch, but not before he gets to check in with our Lynn Gilmartin.
You know, it takes a lot of luck to come back from one big blind.
It certainly does, but hey, it would have made a good story.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you played well?
Yeah, I did. I knew that going in, the table was going to be really tough. I looked at my draw today, and I knew I had one of the tougher tables in the event. And so I knew I wasn't going to just be able to sit back and wait for chips. I was going to have to look for opportunities. And so I tried to do that and try my best, but things didn't go my way.
Welcome to the Bellagio Buffet's executive chef table. Enjoy. So here we go. Chocolate fondue at its best.
12 for 8.
Okay, so let me get this straight, Olivier. You and I are in the skybox, which is not a bad place to be, but we don't get any chocolate fondue.
You didn't get chocolate fondue?
No, I didn't get chocolate fondue.
I did.
What? We're gonna have to see about that. You know who else didn't get any chocolate fondue? Darren Elias, who took pocket deuces up against Noah Schwartz's aces unsuccessfully, but Dan Cates' pocket aces fell prey to Andrew Lichtenberger's pocket sixes. And now we're down to just 18 players as the field grows thinner and thinner. Let's send it to the feature table right now, and your chip leader, Jason Less, with over $1.5 million. Button on Sean Winter, Sorrell and Tom in the blinds. Jason will be first to act. And now that we're down to 6-handed and you've got the big stack, is this something you're gonna look at and say time to lean on the boys or not?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone's going to have to play a little bit of a wider range with fewer people at the table. And, you know, the real advantage comes from when you start to approach the money. You can really start to put pressure on the medium stacks who don't feel the desperation of the short stacks, but at the same time want to try to build stacks to make deep runs.
Jason Less has King 8 offsuit, lays it down. As does Eric Seidel. Jake Schindler, who looks at pocket fours. And he's gonna raise it up, making it 35,000 to go.
Pretty easy standard open from Jake with his pocket pair.
Sean Winter lays down the button, and it's 2 kings for Sorrell.
Obviously a huge hand from Sorrell with his stack and his image. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets action here from Jake.
Any chance he just calls?
He could, I just don't think it makes sense. Sorrell already 3-bets a lot, especially from the small blind, so it makes sense to also play his strong hands like that.
Yeah, he's made it 90,000 total, and Tom Marchese with ace-jack offsuit in the big blind.
Not an easy spot for Tom with his stack against an aggressive 3-better like Sorrell.
Yeah, Tom with 389,000 to start the hand.
All in.
He's gonna move all in, Olivier.
Yeah, it makes an aggressive play here with ace-jack. I don't mind this play. I think it'd be very tough for Jake to call most of his hands. Obviously, in this case, Sorrell with 2 kings gonna instantly call.
You feel like Tom would have made this play if it wasn't Sorrell in the small blind, if it was a different player?
I mean, it depends. If the player was as aggressive as Sorrell, then, you know, he still would make that play. But Sorrell's definitely on the more aggressive side from the small blind, especially with his stack.
Oh, but look at this flop. 2 kings are ace magnets, and it holds true here as Marchese outflops Sorrell. 5 of spades on the turn. King of spades is already in the muck. 1 out on the end, and Sorrell does not connect, taking a huge dent to his stack here. courtesy of Tom Marchese, who not long ago had just 220,000 in chips.
Yeah, Tom winning a couple critical all-ins to vault his stack up to over 800,000. And this is part of the reason that when Tom makes a play, he does it with a hand that has an ace in it. It's because if he does run into pocket queens or pocket kings, he still has a legitimate chance of winning, like he did in this hand.
Somewhere Tom Marchese's father is smiling. At one point, Marchese had to actually use cash game graphs to explain to Dad why poker wasn't just simple luck. And Tom vaults into second in chips, tied with Jake Schindler, 821,000 a man. Up next, more high-stakes action from Vegas.
Learn to play poker like our Alpha 8 high rollers for free at clubwpt.com, where VIP members can watch past episodes, read insider tips, and study up on the pros. Everyone has a chance to win a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes, only on clubwpt.com. So get in the game today.
Welcome back to Bellagio, where high-stakes action continues. Here at Alpha 8, 6 players remain at the feature table. It'll be Tom Marchese first to act with the blinds at 8 and 16,000 and the ante steady at 2K. He lays down 10-4 suited over to Jason Less, your chip leader, who has Jack-9 suited.
With his stack, I expect Jason to open Jack-9 suited.
And that looks to be exactly what he's going to do, making it 35,000 to go, but 2 kings for Erik Seidel.
I think Erik has 2 legit options. I mean, I think he can try to just call and trap with the kings, but in this day and age in poker, people are 3-betting so often that usually they like to include their very strong hands in their 3-betting to try to balance some of their bluffs.
And that's exactly what Seidel has done, making it 90,000 total. Back to Jason Less, 55 more to call.
I'm a little bit surprised by this call. I mean, he's out of position. Erik doesn't have a ton of chips. He just has Jack-9 suited. I actually don't really like this call at all. I think this is just a fold here.
Here comes the flop. Jack-9 tray, top 2 pair for Jason Less, and this is disaster for Erik Seidel.
Yeah, I mean, now I wouldn't fold if I'm Jason, but, you know, you see even when he flops such a big flop like top 2 pair against an overpair that Erik has, he's still only under 70% to win. I mean, Erik still can win a number of different ways here.
Well, Jason has checked it over to Erik, who bets 90,000.
This is a relatively draw-heavy board, so I wouldn't be surprised if Jason, and he does raise here, just trying to commit against Erik's stack.
Yeah, pretty textured-looking threesome up there on the flop.
Not a lot of options for Erik here with his stack in his hand. He has to just move his chips in.
And that's exactly what he does. The writing pretty much on the wall. Snap call from Jason Less. And Erik is going to get a little surprise here. I don't think he expects to see Jack-9 suited in Jason's hand.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't so shocked to be behind, but I think that particular hand was just not one of the ones he was thinking of.
10 of clubs. Seidel can hit a 3, a 10, a queen, or a king. It's the 6 of hearts, and down go Cowboys and Hall of Famer Erik Seidel.
And everyone else.
An absolute beast on the super high roller circuits worldwide has been sent home, courtesy of Jack-9 suited.
Yeah, Jason took a gamble there. It paid off, and he's looking to make a deep run here.
Yep, and with Seidel's departure, we are down to just 17 players, Olivier. 5 at the featured table, 6 at our 2 outer tables. And let's send it back to the featured table. King-Jack suited for Jason. He puts his newly earned chips to work, making it 35,000 to go. Couple of nickels for Jake Schindler. And he's gonna 3-pop to 90.
That's an interesting 3-bet. I would expect most pros to just call here with 2 5s.
Oh, look at this, Marchese with a couple of aces, Olivier, in the big blind. What a great situation he's in.
Yeah, I expect Tom to put a 4-bet in here. He doesn't want to call, let Jason enter the pot, and have to play out of position against 2 opponents. So I think a 4-bet is in order here from Tom's pocket aces.
Right, whereas a smooth call, if he was maybe in position against his 2 opponents, might be the more favorable approach. And indeed, Olivier, you're right. He does put in the 4-bet, 185,000 total. King Jack suited, just not looking so good anymore. Les lays it down, back over to pocket fives for Schindler.
And the problem for Jake is just that Tom's raise here is like the exact size to put Jake at a decision for his tournament.
All in.
Wow.
Wow, Jake Schindler ships it all in, and a snap call from Tom, no question.
Big misstep there from Jake. At the end of the day, he's now put in almost 50 big blinds with 2 fives in a 5-bet pot. I think this is just way too loose of a play. I think sometimes you make an aggressive play with a weak hand, somebody makes another aggressive play, and you kind of let your mind play tricks on you, thinking that they know what you have and that they're putting you in a tough spot purposefully.
Yeah, you get the feeling that he suspected Marchese was out of line on that 4-bet, looking to take advantage of a situation, but instead, he had the goods, the flop, king 6-7. Fives are in bad shape. The queen of hearts is no help to Schindler. And now he has 2 outs once for his tournament. Can he hit a nickel? Looking for 15 cents on the river. No dice. And Jake Schindler, just like that.
Yeah, that's part of the danger of no limit hold'em is that at any point, if you make a mistake against someone with more chips than you, that can end your day. And a little bit of a blow up here from Jake as he 5-bets all in with pocket fives and runs into Tom's pocket aces.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's going to be getting a great night's sleep after that series of events. You get the feeling he'll be replaying that hand in his mind.
Unbelievable surge from Tom here.
With Schindler's departure, we are now down to just 16 players, which means we'll redraw and consolidate the field to just 2 tables, which means we'll see some new faces at our feature table next time. But before we say goodbye, let's send it down to Lynn Gilmartin, who's standing by with a disappointed Jake Schindler.
Jake, you seem to be playing really solid today, and then, but now you're here. You must be disappointed.
Yeah, I am. I just really like those pocket fives, you know?
Now, Tom is on a roll today. How do you think he's playing?
I always think he plays really, really well. We had a very solid table, and he's been managing very well, playing very good.
All right, well, you played really well too. Thank you so much, Jake. And there is plenty more to come from WPT Alpha 8 Las Vegas, so make sure you stay tuned next time. For Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet, I'm Lynn Gilmartin. Good night. In Las Vegas, spending $100,000 to flirt with Lady Luck only gets you so far. This is WPT Alpha 8. The world-famous city of Las Vegas, a land filled with dreams of striking it rich, and we are at its crown jewel, Bellagio. I'm Lynn Gilmartin, ready to bring you VIP access to our continuing coverage of WPT Alpha 8 Las Vegas. This super high roller poker tournament is not for the weak at heart. All of our players paid at least $100,000 for the privilege to compete. But that privilege does not come with a money-back guarantee. We have already seen some of those competitors take that unpleasant walk of shame that left them broke, busted, and out of the game. For the survivors, the excitement is on as they get closer to winning this title and the over $2 million first place prize. At this point, who will win is not so obvious, but we do have 2 gentlemen who will help give us an inside look as to what these players need to do if they hope to find themselves with a big payday. I'm talking about A8's own Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet. They're up in the ClubWPT.com skybox. Good evening, boys.
Good evening to you, Lynn Gilmartin, and to our 16 remaining competitors. Olivier, what jumps out right away is that there is a complete lack of true amateurs left in this field.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Stephen is the only so-called amateur that's left, and he's no slouch. He has a lot of experience and is a tough player. And the rest of the pros are some of the best pros in the world. This is probably the best final group of 16 players that I've ever seen at the end of a tournament.
Wow, that's a bold statement coming from you, my friend. 44 players in total, 55 entries, good for a prize pool of over $5.3 million, and we are going to make not one, but 2 millionaires out of our top 6, which is the money. 2.1 million in change for first and 1.2 and change for second. Let's zero in on the feature table, Olivier. Who do you like?
Well, there's two guys I just want to focus on right now. Lucky Chewy, Andrew Lichtenberger, and Doug Polk. We've seen Chewy before. What viewers might not know is that over the last few years, Chewy's become kind of zen. He's started meditating, doing a lot more yoga, and I think it's really helped his poker game. He's a lot more relaxed and confident at the table, and he's, you know, just one of the best players out there. Now, Doug Polk, viewers might not be as familiar with. He's probably the best, the #1 heads-up player on the internet. He works as hard on his game as anyone that I know, and he's just as tough as it gets.
Yeah, Doug Polk from Boulder City, Nevada, currently living in Las Vegas, just 25 years of age. Used to go to UNC Wilmington to study political science and planned on attending law school, but somewhere along the way, I think he caught the poker bug. Let's get down to the action. Blinds are at 10 and 20,000. The ante is 2,000. Button will be on the Zen Master, Lucky Chewy, Jason Kuhn, and Doug Polk in the blinds, and Brian Rast first to act. Rast with King 4 offsuit lays it down. He looks like something out of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas right there. He's got the real Sin City vibe going.
Brian, one of the players with the most live experience out of all of these pros. He's very tough and intimidating presence at the table.
Dong Kim and Sean Winter both lay down, and Noah Schwartz unlikely to be doing the same as he picks up 2 aces to start the session.
Good start for Noah, obviously going to come in for a raise here.
45,000, just over a min raise. Chewy lays down. And Jason Kuhn also with aces here.
Wow, this is something you almost never see at a poker table. Pocket aces against pocket aces. Not to mention that the open raiser, Noah Schwartz, is in late position here, so he's definitely not going to get as much credit from the rest of his opponents.
Yeah, Jason Kuhn, 29 years of age, splits his time between Vegas and Vancouver, though he is a West Virginia native. This is his 3rd Alpha 8 appearance, and he's going to repop it predictably here to 135,000 total.
I'm helping you out.
Now the action's back over to Noah. He's going to have position in this pot. Do you favor a call as opposed to a re-raise?
I prefer a call here. I think Jason's range is a little bit too wide to try to get it in with pocket aces here.
Yeah, Noah makes it 282,000 though. This is where you start to really narrow your range and polarize things.
It's 282.
Yes.
Now the question really for Jason Kuhn is whether he thinks Noah would be bluffing here often enough to justify a call. If you don't think your opponent is bluffing very often, you should just go all in and expect him to call because he's got mostly value hands.
Schwartz started this pot with 885,000, Kuhn with 1.5 million in change, so he does have Noah covered, and he's going to just call. And you see Noah shoot him a quick look. What's going through Schwartz's head?
Well, Schwartz is just happy to get the action. I mean, with pocket aces in his stack, there are very, very few flops he's ever going to get.
But he's still putting Jason on a range of hands. As we see the flop hit, 10-4 deuce with a couple of hearts. Jason checks to Noah, who bets 275,000. Kuhn with a quick all-in. Schwartz with an even quicker call, and surprise.
Got hearts.
And you see the percentages here. Noah Schwartz cannot win this pot outright given this flop. However, Jason Kuhn has a 2% chance to hit running hearts and make a flush, which would give him the whole pot.
Most of the time, though, he'll just chop this pot.
No kings? It's kings every time.
Oh, Malayo.
Yeah, both players pretty disappointed after seeing their opponent's hands. I mean, they were both excited to be in a great spot to win a ton of chips.
Important to note that Kuhn cannot lose the pot, whereas Schwartz can. But now that the board hits with the 10 of diamonds, the river is a mere formality, and they'll chop up the big blind and the antes.
You're supposed to have kings, buddy.
I know. One of us is supposed to have kings, aren't we?
We thought we had each other.
Yeah.
King.
But then Kuhn's too.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
You gotta give it up.
Yeah, Jason Kuhn, he's a guy who has lost a lot of those pots in the past, so he might even be happy to split it there. His talent certainly outweighs his performance last year as far as the numbers were concerned.
Yeah, Jason been a little bit snake-bit in some of those high-equity spots. You don't get into too many of them when you play high-stakes tournaments for a living, so if you don't run that good, you know, it can be a little bit frustrating.
48,000.
Back to the feature table where we find Jason Kuhn right back in the saddle, raising with pocket deuces this time. Not quite aces, but good enough to get involved. 48,000 is the number, and Brian Rast has him pipped with a couple of threes.
Brian, one of the more aggressive players on the tour.
You know, somehow, taking a look at Brian Rast, you might guess that.
So it looks like Brian's decided to 3-bet his pocket threes. And again, I think part of the reason he does that is a function of Jason Kuhn's late position raise, plus the fact that Brian himself is in the small blind, a notoriously difficult position to play.
Phil Locke gets out of the way. Kuhn just calls. Uh-oh.
Wow.
7 tray deuce. Set over set.
Yeah, not only is this an unbelievable cooler, but you have to remember both these players are very deep to start this hand. And from Jason's point of view, it's just almost impossible for him to be beat at this point. I mean, how could Brian Rast 3-bet a hand like pocket 3s? Even pocket 7s is not particularly likely. So Jason is sitting incredibly excited about this pot and the potential to win a huge pot.
Yeah, he feels like he's got Brian on the hook for at least 110,000 and just makes the call, giving him some rope, Olivier.
Yeah, I like this play from Jason. Brian's a very, very aggressive player, and they're very deep. So I would let Brian kind of continue his aggression. And since he's in position, he can to make the last raise.
And look at this turn card, the ace of hearts.
Now we know that Jason is in a world of trouble here, but both players are actually not that discouraged by this ace. They're both hoping that their opponent hit the ace and will continue to give action.
303,000 is the bet from Brian.
Now, of course, Brian could easily have a big ace himself, just continuation bet on the flop and then have hit the ace on the turn.
Kuhn just calls.
And we can see this pot has ballooned rather quickly. It's already over $1 million in chips.
And here comes the river. Oh, that's a tricky one, the 5 of diamonds.
The 5 of diamonds does change things a little bit. It's a very scary card. Either player, in theory, could have a 4 and, of course, could have made a flush.
I'm all in.
Wow.
Rast moves all in.
Huge bet here from Brian Rast. This pot has the potential to be absolutely massive.
Oh my God, it's so sick. Rast, I had you, buddy. I flopped a set. Oh, it's just like non-stop, man. Every single one of these spots. I get there and I'm just like, yeah, cool. You know, I'm finally gonna have 3 million in one of these 100Ks. Do what I can do, and then flop a set, and that happens.
Just an incredibly difficult position for Jason. Obviously, he flopped what he considered to be the nuts. Now, we know he was beat on the flop, but he has no way of knowing that.
9 8 of diamonds, 10 9 of diamonds. Not that many combos, straights. Sorry, guys, it's one of the biggest hands I've ever been in.
Over 2 million in the pot.
I think if I were in Jason's position, I would just feel forced to call here. I wouldn't like it. And remember, Brian Rast is one of the most aggressive players on the tour. If anyone is capable of making this triple barrel massive bluff, it's Brian.
Only 4 combos of 4 5. Well, 3 combos of 4 5. This is so disgusting, man.
Kuhn calls. Surprise.
Ugh, nice hand.
And when you said you had a set, I was flopped a set. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Which one?
Taking a little time. That's pretty thin shove.
You really got to give Brian credit. This is a really impressive value bet here.
888.
Nice hand, Brian.
Brian could have lost to pocket 7s. He could have lost to any 4 or any flush, but he still had enough confidence in his hand and in the situation to make this big value bet and ultimately win a huge pot. I think a number of players might have just checked the river, hoping their opponent check and win a much smaller pot. It's a nice bet there on the river and a huge pot.
That's why they're the best.
Alpha 8 is sponsored by ClubWPT.com. Fun, exciting poker you can play for free. Don't have dough for a high roller buy-in but still want to get in the game? Log on to ClubWPT.com and play for free. Become a VIP member and enjoy insider benefits, plus take a shot at a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes every month. Win at ClubWPT.com, but never lose a dime playing poker, guaranteed.
This is where the big stakes happen here in Las Vegas, right here in Bobby's Room. For those that may not know, Bobby's Room was named after Bobby Baldwin, a high-stakes former world champion, poker player himself, former president of Bellagio. Just peek around, let me see who's there right now. I see a couple Hall of Famers at the table, the legendary Doyle Brunson, Lyle Berman, who created the World Poker Tour along with Steve Lipscomb. I see a Patrick Antonius, David Benjamin, and let me tell you something. These players absolutely love when the big-time poker tournaments come to Bellagio because they welcome the guys that just bust out of the tournaments, where they're on tilt, they're steaming, and they say, come on, boys. And some of them jump into Bobby's Room here to try to fire it up to get their money back. These guys love it.
Olivia, used to be that tournament players were highly specialized entities and they didn't really partake in the high-stakes cash games and vice versa for the most part. But now that's changing.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, tournament variance is just so high that a lot of players also play cash games on the side as a kind of more regular stream of income. But at the same time, a lot of these tournament players are also cash game specialists who have just moved into tournaments because there's a lot of money to be made, especially in these really super high roller, high buy-in ones.
Well, here's someone who fancies himself good at both sides of the poker equation, Phil Locke. Looks like one of the X-Men with the goggles on right now.
What do you think his superpower is?
Oh gosh, talking?
Folding? Maybe folding.
Yeah, so far. Here's a look at Dong Kim. Dong currently calls South Korea home, just 25 years of age. A group of players that you describe as the Douglets, as we see him go all in here for $266,000 with ace-4 offsuit.
All in.
And Sean Winter over the top for $391.
Yeah, the Douglets are kind of an affectionate term that are used in the poker community to describe a group of players that Doug Polk has, developed and trained, found them when they were young and playing smaller stakes, and has helped them achieve very high levels of poker success.
This Douglet in a world of hurt heading to the flop, dominated by Sean Winter, and here comes that flop. Ace-9-4, aces and fours for Dong Kim. Huge suck out on this flop. Sean Winter needs a lot of help. The deuce of clubs on the turn isn't going to do it. Now he needs a 9 or a 10 on the river and cannot connect as Dong gets a stay of execution. Very fortunate turn of events for him.
Yeah, I don't think the rest of the table was too thrilled to see that. If Dong gets a hold of some chips, he can be a real threat.
Now, worthy of note, Olivier, is that this is the very first Alpha 8 for both Dong Kim and for Sean Winter. Do nerves ever play a part in that type of spot?
You know, I think both these players probably have a lot of experience playing cash, playing on the internet, so at the end of the day, poker is poker, and if you're comfortable playing hands, you should be pretty comfortable at the table.
Let's take a look at the chip count. Brian Rast in the chip lead with almost $3 million in front of him. A distant second, Andrew Lichtenberger with 1.3 and change. Action folded around to Dong Kim. A couple of snowmen for him. He's got $634,000, and he's going to raise it up to 50 now that he's got some breathing room. Over to Sean Winter with ace-9 off.
50.
Sean on the super short stack here probably feels like he doesn't have too many options. Got to kind of go with it with this hand.
All in.
Yeah, and he's going to put it all in for $124,000.
I don't think he's going to mind too much seeing Dong's pocket eights. It's going to be pretty much a flip.
2 overs against the eights, assuming we get all the way back that direction. And we do.
124.
Dong will most certainly call the extra $74,000, and these two will put their cards on their backs, and we'll let 5 run off the stub. All right, here comes the flop. Ace-4-7, and this time Sean Winter, the one that gets lucky. The turn of 5, and the river is a 6. Running straight cards for Dong Kim, who hits Sean Winter with the left cross and then the right uppercut. 1-2 punch, and Winter has been KO'd.
Super unlucky for Sean. Didn't seem like he could get anything going throughout this tournament, and at the end, the blinds got big. He lost 2 all-ins, and that was that.
It's amazing how easily you can go from thinking that you're in contention to heading for the exit, down to just 15 players. 7 left at the feature table.
I get to shove this one. I'm gonna go all in.
And another short stack, Jason Kuhn, even shorter than Sean's before him with 52,000, is gonna move all in with the hard 6, pocket 3s, the hand he lost a lot of his chips to when that man, Brian Rast, hit set over set. This time Rast is gonna call with Queen 10 suited.
Brian trying to finish the job after that epic cooler he had over Jason.
Folded all the way to Lucky Chewy in the big blind. And he's gonna take a peek at King Deuce suited.
Chewy getting a great price here.
Yeah, 32,000 to call. And he makes that call. A competitive bowler in high school once bowled a 289, believe it or not.
Let's see if we can do it.
3 players to the flop.
See if we can start the spin.
Active side pot, which is currently dry between Andrew and Brian. And the flop. Ace-5-7, 2-3 still the best hand. Air for both other players, who both check. Turn card is a queen, and now Brian Rast has the best hand. Chewy checks it over to Brian.
Looks like Brian's going to try to bet here, protect his queen. I like this play.
Oh, Rasty, live and die by it.
Chewy folds. Jason Koon gets the bad news, and he knows he needs to hit one of 2 remaining 3s in the deck in order to double and stay alive. Instead, it's a 7, and adios for Jason Koon.
Yeah. Good luck, guys. Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Good luck, man. Good luck, guys. Pleasure.
So Jason Koon's departure means we're down to just 14 players, 8 at the outer, 6 at the feature. So we're going to yank a player from the outer table to balance things up.
I'll tell you what, Doug, it's never easy.
And while we do, let's send it down to Lynn Gilmartin, who's with a no doubt disappointed Jason Koon.
Wow, Jason, what a turn of events. I mean, I could really see the agony in that decision with that set over set pot.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. I mean, there's just absolutely nothing you can do. It goes 3-bet, and I call in position, and I get a 7-3 deuce flush draw board. I'm literally singing in my head like, oh my God, I'm finally gonna win one of these. But I mean, Rast plays well. It's really unfortunate, but it's life, and it's these tournaments.
Yeah.
I never try to get my hopes up because it's, you know, you play well, and a lot of it, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Las Vegas for the continuation of Alpha 8. High-stakes action here inside Bellagio. Just before the break, we lost Jason Koon, which meant we needed to draw a name from the outer table to rebalance things, and we came up with that man right there, Jason Mercier. Rest of the field's got to be thrilled to see him arrive.
Yeah, I mean, you're never happy to see Jason Mercier walk up to your table, but at the same time, this tournament has become so tough at the end that I don't think there's a single player from the other table that these players would have been happy to see.
Yeah, it really wouldn't have mattered who we sent over. It wasn't going to be a fish, we know that much. And Jason Mercier, fresh off his St. Kitts victory at the Alpha 8.
Don't rub it in, Ali.
Yeah, who finished 4th in that one, Olivier?
I don't know, some clown.
A disappointing money bubble finish for our very own Olivier Bousquet there. But we're happy to have you back in the booth, my friend. Blinds have gone up to 11 and 22,000 with a 3,000 ante. A bit of an unorthodox structure, no?
Yeah, it's, you know, they're trying to create as much play as possible, especially at the end of the tournament, and I think that's great. The players are probably very happy about that.
Action folded around to Mercier. Looks at Queen Jack offsuit.
Are Ali Najad and some other guy in the back room analyzing this in real time right now on a 30-minute?
Some other guy in the back room? Thanks a lot, Phil Locke.
Ouch, Olivier, no love.
Jason, welcome to the table. Rasty likes to play.
Mercier makes it 44,000 to go. And Locke looks at ace-king offsuit. And sends 245,000 of his remaining 274 into the pot.
Yeah, there's no real strategic reason for doing this. It's just
impish.
Yeah, maybe to try to create the impression that you have less chips than you actually do. Maybe just to throw your opponent off. But Jason's too smart. He's going to count the whole stack, and he knows that he can't call with Queen Jack offsuit for about 13 big blinds. So, yeah, I'm not sure what Jason's thinking about, to be honest here. He's never, ever calling. Sometimes people don't like to just instantly fold their hands because it suggests that they just are opening with weak hands. But at this point, when you're talking about Jason Mercier, I mean, I think you could just fold right away.
Let's take a look at the chip counts. Brian Rast, 2.8 million and change. The short stack belongs to Phil Locke now, 360,000. Back to the action, which has been folded around to Jason Mercier again and again. He's got Queen Jack offsuit. He's on the button here. Doug Polk and Brian Rast on his left. And Mercier is going to send his entire stack out there with just Queen Jack.
I think it's 390.
Yeah, I think the reason Jason does that is because he doesn't want to put a raise in and then give one of his opponents the opportunity to then put pressure on him, force him to a decision for his tournament life with just Queen High. So instead, he puts the decision on his opponents, forcing them to come up with a good enough hand to call his entire stack.
Meaning if he would have min-raised, this would have been a different situation for Brian Rast with a hand like ace-6 off.
Yeah, this is a perfect example. I mean, Brian could have easily just called him min-raise, but if he wanted to get aggressive, and Brian is the type of player to do that, he could have decided to put pressure on Jason with his ace-6 off, and then Jason would have been in a tough spot. Instead, Brian's the one in a tough spot because he knows that with Jason's range, it's very unlikely for Brian to be a big favorite here. He could definitely be a small favorite, but that's basically the best he can hope for.
He does have the chips to make this sort of investment in potentially knocking out a difficult competitor. Sure enough, Brian Rast makes the big call, and they're on their backs. And you see Mercier actually the favorite heading to the flop.
Yeah, the reason for that is because some of the other players have folded relevant cards that have changed the percentages. If we didn't know those other cards, Jason would be a slight dog. Instead, he's a slight favorite.
Oh, and he's an even bigger favorite after that flop, Olivier. Jack 9-4 as he pairs his jack. Rast just 10% to win the pot now. Turn card is another 9, and Brian needs to hit an ace. That's the only card Mercier saying don't put up there, and it's a safe queen of diamonds as Jason Mercier will double through the chip leader.
I think, part of the reason Brian decides to call in that spot, it might look a little fishy with his hand, but it's basically just that because Jason put such a big bet in, he's pretty confident Jason doesn't have a monster. And so he decided to take a risk. He's got a big, big stack. Just didn't work out for him.
Lose every hand except for when I'm on. That's the way to do it.
You actually will win every tournament that happens.
Straight ahead, can Mercier keep the momentum going?
Las Vegas attracts the best poker players from around the world. And now you can play WPT caliber poker on your iPhone anywhere you go for free. Log on to the App Store to download Club WPT Express Poker. Remember, it's free and it's fun. Hope to see you in the game.
Welcome back to Las Vegas for the continuation of WPT Alpha 8. During the break, Olivier, we lost Sorel Mitzi. The one-time chip leader found himself all in with Queen Jack up against Bryn Kenny's Pocket Kings, and this hand didn't play out the way you expected it.
Yeah, it looks like Sorel opened from late position and then 4-bet all in over Bryn's 3-bet. Making a move here, running into a big hand, just unfortunate for Sorel.
And now we are down to just 13 players. There is a look at the way our feature table shakes out. Brian Rast, a much narrower gap than he had at one point in time between himself and second place Andrew Lichtenberger. Action folded around to Doug Polk on the button. Haven't seen Doug play a hand thus far. Doug, the 25-year-old pro from Boulder City, Nevada, widely considered one of the best online heads-up, no-limit hold'em players in the game. He's got ace-3 suited here.
Definitely gonna come in for a raise.
Doug made it 46,000 to go. 20 miles for Brian Rast. He's got pocket tens.
Yeah, big hand for Brian here.
In the blinds are Brian Rast and Phil Locke, who has swapped out those ski goggles for some more conventional eyewear and shed his trademark hoodie as well. Rast raises.
I'm surprised to see Phil Locke just instantly fold King Jack.
Locke with 357,000 to start the hand. Obviously needs to get something going sooner than later. Action back over to Doug Polk now.
If I was Doug, I'd probably be more likely to 4-bet with this hand than to just call, but in position, Doug very comfortable playing post-flop and decides to just call and see it.
Yeah, also don't want to necessarily risk bloating the pot, right? Doug makes the call for another 105,000 and will be heads up in position against Czar Rast. Doug outflops Brian, making a pair of aces here. Action on Rast, though.
Obviously a very lucky flop for Doug as he 3-out to Brian here.
Brian's certainly not going to just give up. Bets 120,000 in continuation.
I think this bet has kind of two functions. It serves as a protection bet in case Doug had a jack or queen or king, and it also serves as a value bet. I mean, 2 tens is still likely to be the best hand, even though there's a single ace on the board.
Doug makes the call.
Yeah, I don't think raising here makes a lot of sense. Calling is the pretty obvious play. And even from Brian's point of view, it's not clear that he's beat just because Doug calls 1 bet on the flop.
585,000 in the pot. Turn is a 6 of diamonds. A lot of texture there, but both players are going to check, and the river is a 10 of spades. Brian Rast hits a set.
Very unlucky for Doug, and I think it's going to be very tough for Doug to find a fold here. After checking on the turn, Doug has slightly underrepresented his hand, and I think it's going to be very tough for him to get away after Brian bets this river.
What should I do, Rast? You tell me.
Well, Polk makes the call. And he's not too happy to see that.
It would appear that the 10 was good for your hand.
The always astute observations of Phil Locke.
You got him on the river, Rusty. You river routed him. Congrats. Set on the river. They're gonna sew in.
There it is.
So I
All right.
It blew up.
You
We're gonna show that.
River to set.
A little frustration there from Doug Polk.
Yeah, it's 10-23.
8-16 with a 1K.
Action on Andrew Lichtenberger, the one you call Chewy.
6-12 with a 1K, Annie. Wrong.
Well, he's got a very chewable pair of aces.
Yeah, great hand for Chewy.
That's why.
How could it have been worse than this?
Chewy lives a very clean life. Eats healthy, meditates, practices yoga.
Shaves daily. I think we should update his name to Lucky Chewbacca. He makes it 60,000 to go.
Yeah. I think Chewy's Zen nature he'd probably be okay with whatever we wanted to call him. He'd be like, yeah, cool, man, whatever you want, dude.
Over to Polk, who's got a couple of 7s, and he's still licking his wounds from that bad beat on the river against Brian Rast, and
Mullen.
He's gonna move all in for his remaining 532,000, Olivier.
Yeah, a little bit unlucky for Doug. I mean, he's got a pretty good hand here with a pocket pair. He has just over 20 big blinds, so can't really fault him for moving in. Just a little bit unlucky to run into the pocket rockets of Chewy.
Call. Chewy, of course, makes the easy call.
Oh, ripped it right into aces. Oh.
Polk, a little disappointed to say the least.
Yeah, there are plenty of hands that Chewy will be opening with there that he just can't call with, or even if he does find a call, Doug will be flipping with.
All right, well, good luck.
Good luck. You got hearts. You got hearts.
Here comes the flop. Polk is 7 fishing. Instead, it's 2 8s and a king on the flop, and 2 outs twice are in Doug's future. A 3 is not one of them. Will the river connect? No, and that's it for Doug Polk.
Good luck. We're playing with you. Lock, keep it real. See you, Dong.
See you, buddy.
See ya. Good luck. Good luck, guys.
Well, maybe next time Doug will pick another Major League team t-shirt to wear, because we know the Cubs, that story doesn't end well. The real story, though, Andrew Lichtenberger, who is stacking chips, and that's something no one wants to see.
One table at 9.
Yo, I know you called him, but would you have called me if I joined?
No favoritism here.
Let's send it down to Lynn Gilmartin, who's with Doug now.
All right, I get it.
How's this happening to me?
What happened?
How's this happening? I thought we had a good thing going here.
Aces.
You and me. No. All right. They had the aces.
They had the aces.
They right there. I had a hand that wasn't aces, and then they had the aces.
And now you're here.
I'm here. It was a minefield out there.
It was a minefield.
It was a minefield.
But you did pretty well. You've gone deep into day 2. Do you feel like you played well?
I think I played good. Well, I always play good, so I know I can play good.
Oh, I love that confidence. I love it.
Well, Doug seems to have a pretty positive attitude, but the reality is nobody likes dropping 100K off at Bellagio.
Yeah, especially as you get deeper and deeper into the tournament, closer to that money bubble.
And the Zen master, Andrew Lichtenberger, having a great day.
Yeah, he's affectionately referred to in the poker community as Chewy or Lucky Chewy. His mother actually used to pack Chewy granola bars in his lunchbox when he was a kid, and so he used Lucky Chewy as his online name.
It's been lucky so far. Let's go down now to the feature table where we resume the action. Dong Kim with ace-6 suited raised under the gun was called by Noah Schwartz, who had queen-10 suited. Brian Rast then made a peculiar call from the small blind with king-3 suited. It was 3-way to the flop. Brian with a pair of kings checked it over to Dong, who fired 105,000. And with Noah out of the way, the action is on Brian, who has made this call in the pot up to 411,000. Dong with the nut flush draw.
Yeah, kind of like you said, kind of a strange call from the small blind, but if anybody's going to make it, it's Brian. He likes to get involved, play a lot of different hands, and feels confident he can make good decisions after the flop.
And his decision on the turn is to check. Again, over to Dong.
Mullen.
And Dong's going to move all in here with just ace high. The flush draw, he's counting on it, 438,000.
Yeah, I like this play from Dong. He's got a lot of equity, and he can put a lot of pressure on Brian. His stack size is such that his 2 choices were basically check or all in.
Well, you mentioned pressure. It didn't look much like Brian was feeling any of that as he quickly made the call with king-3.
Yeah, I mean, I think as Brian just felt committed to the pot, he did have top pair. But at the same time, I mean, it's not like Don Kim ever has, you know, 2 9s there. He's either got a big draw or a hand that absolutely crushes Brian.
Well, let's go to the river. Can Don connect with a spade? He cannot.
All right, good game, guys.
A little bit lucky for Brian to avoid an ace or a spade on the river, and he knocks Don Kim out.
Down to just 11 players, inching ever closer to our final table here in Vegas. Welcome back to the World Poker Tour Alpha 8. We are inching closer to our final table. During the break, we lost not 1 but 2 players. Scott Seaver, the first among them, who moved all in with pocket 3s pre-flop from the button. Brandon Stephen woke up with 2 10s and sent him to the exits. And then it was Paul Volpe who took his 2 8s up against Bryn Kenny's pocket aces, and that was the end of his day here in Vegas. That means we are down to just 9 players. We've redrawn for seats, and they can feel themselves inching closer. Top 6 will be paid. Do you expect the action to change now that we're 9-handed and the money bubble approaches?
Yeah, definitely. As you get close to the bubble, it gives more of an advantage to the big stacks. The shortest stack still is in a little bit of desperation mode, knows that they need to chip up or win some chips to be able to cash. But some of those medium stacks are likely to play a little bit more passive, a little bit tighter.
Fold it around to Bryn Kenny, the new face. With King 8 offsuit in the cutoff, he raises it to $55,000.
Bryn Kenny, one of the more aggressive players on tour, staying true to form here, raising it up with King 8 off.
Bryn, with over $3.9 million in live tournament earnings at the ripe age of 28, hails from New York. This is his first Alpha 8 appearance. Action folded to Brian Rast in the big blind. He's got ace-9 offsuit, and he'll defend. Heads up to the flop. And that flop, ace-9-6, all Rast.
Yeah, huge flop here for Brian, obviously flopping top 2 pair, and it's a relatively draw-heavy board, so there could be action.
9 times out of 10, we're going to see a continuation bet out of him regardless, right?
Well, you know, on this particular board, you know, Bryn being the aggressor, he also actually has 2 backdoor draws. The King of Spades gives him a backdoor flush draw, and the 8 gives him a backdoor straight draw. So I expect him to bet as he has, and then if he picks up equity, probably continue to show aggression. So if Brian plays his hand well, he could really win a big pot depending on how Bryn plays it.
Well, it's $67,000 out of Kenny.
I think most people would check and just call in this spot, but Brian plays a slightly different style. He mixes it up more. He tries to make more plays, to get involved in more check-raise situations. So a lot of times when players play a style like that, they also include their big hands to check-raise to try to balance their bluffs.
Yeah, Brian is well aware of the way in which other players at the table perceive him to be hyper-aggressive, and he sort of cultivates the value of that. There's a check raise from Brian to $207,000. Kenny gets away relatively cheap.
Come on to King Rast land and the knights will come out and have their way. King Rast, he drinks from the chalice of power. As you can see, it's right next to him.
The chalice of power. There's a look at it. All smiles for Rast.
He's drinking this DHT or whatever that is.
You would love to know what's in that. Secret. Will you share what's in there? Yeah, you want to look at it? My wife made it. I actually don't know what's in it.
So the mystery brew is working out so far for Brian Rast. Straight ahead, more from Vegas.
Learn to play poker like our Alpha 8 high rollers for free at clubwpt.com, where VIP members can watch past episodes, read insider tips, and study up on the pros. Everyone has a chance to win a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes, only on clubwpt.com. So get in the game today.
It's all about getting in the game, and you can get in the game right now, all from the comfort of your own home. All you got to do is head to your computer and log on to clubwpt.com.
For those of you who don't know, ClubWPT.com is a website where you can play fun, exciting poker with your friends for free.
And if you really want to go all out and have access to the special benefits of Club WPT, you can become a VIP member where you have access to some great materials to help improve your game, including past episodes of the WPT and Alpha 8.
At ClubWPT.com, you can enjoy unlimited poker and play for a part of the $100,000 in cash and prizes that are given away each month.
You can even win seats to big WPT events, so get to your computer and log on to ClubWPT.com already. In the meantime, let's check out the chip count, where Brian Rast is sitting on top with almost $4 million in his stack. Second place, Andrew Lichtenberger. The short stacks currently belong to Jason Mercier and Phil Locke, respectively. Blinds at 12 and 24,000, ante at 4,000, and the action folded around to WPT champion Tom Marchese with over $7.5 million in live tournament earnings. Has raised it to 55,000 with King 10 suited.
Pretty standard raise pre-flop from Tom.
Lock folds. Actions on Mercier.
Jason Mercier folding Queen Jack suited, I guess 25 big blinds to an early position Marchese raise. He feels like it's a fold in that spot. I might have even considered 3-betting, but can't really blame Jason.
Well, Queen Jack certainly not as good as Jack Jack, and that is what 41-year-old Wichita, Kansas native Brandon Stephen has. He is considered the amateur in this particular field, which isn't entirely accurate. He's got over $1.9 million in live tournament earnings, but certainly doesn't play for a living, Olivier.
Yeah, Brandon's a very talented, very good player, but at the same time, he's up against the top players in the world. So compared to this field, he would definitely be considered an amateur.
Brandon defends his big blind, and we head to the flop heads up. That flop, ace 4-3. Brandon, can't love the ace out there on the flop. Checks it over to Tom.
Doesn't love it, but also can't fold either to just one bet.
And that bet, 55,000.
Tom with 2 backdoor draws, and King High decides to go for continuation bet. Pretty dry board, very reasonable play from Tom.
Stephen makes the call to turn the 9 of spades. Stephen checks.
And so this is where it starts to get interesting. Tom Marchese has picked up a flush draw, a lot of added equity here, and this is where players start to really throw in bluffs. Tom is going to continuation bet here. It'll be interesting to see if he gets called what he does on the river.
And indeed, Stephen has made the call of 150,000.
So a stubborn call here from Brandon Stephen. He happens to be right. Of course, if Tom did have an ace, he'd be drawing very thin.
River card is a 7 of hearts, an air ball for Marchese, and now Stephen checking a third time, and with 568,000 in the middle, what do you do if you're Tom? Will Tom wave the white flag, or will the 2010 Card Player of the Year get after it? And he is going to get after it, betting 410,000.
And this is the play. This is the type of play that separates the highest level best pros from everyone else. Their willingness and ability to identify these situations where their opponents are a little bit weak and they go for it with 3 strong barrels.
That's him.
And Stephen knows it's way too difficult to make the call with 2 jacks. Lays it down.
Really great play there from Tom.
Tom Marchese, the 2010 Card Player of the Year. He's got over $7.5 million in live tournament earnings. And Marchese shows us what kind of pro he is, up to $1.8 million in chips in his stack. Action folded around to Jason Mercier, who has roughly 600,000 in front of him with ace-king offsuit. Blinds have gone up to 15 and 30,000 with the 5K ante. That's tricky territory, Olivier.
On. Yeah, 20 big blinds. I think most players would put in a small raise trying to induce action from their opponents.
Well, instead, he's going to move it all in here.
Wow, this is a big shove from Jason Mercier. I think he almost always has a very big hand when he does this. But we did see him make a somewhat similar-looking play earlier with just Queen Jack offsuit. He was in a later position and had fewer chips, but it's going to look similar to some of his opponents.
Well, he's gotten through almost everyone, but a roadblock in the form of Brian Rast, who looks down at ace-jack offsuit and makes a big call.
Wow. This is a pretty tough spot for Brian. I think ultimately I would have folded it just because Jason with 20 big blinds, early position, at this point in the tournament only has good hands here. But still, Brian Rast with his stack can afford to lose this.
Yeah, and lose this is what He certainly is in a position to dominated heading to the flop. Oh, but look at that, Jack 5 deuce, and that's not a 3-outer, Olivier, that's a 2-outer because Bryn folded a Jack before the flop. Devastating turn of events for Jason. Yeah, Mercier needs to hit a king. It's a 6 of hearts on the turn, and the bell tolls for the man who's never missed an Alpha 8 final table in his 4 appearances. Can he hit the king and keep that streak alive? He cannot, and that's it. We are officially down to our Alpha 8 with the exit of Jason Mercier.
Just my days. Yeah, good luck, man.
Let's send it down to Lynn Gilmartin, who's with Jason now.
Jason, you took down Alpha 8 St. Kitts. You got pretty close here in Vegas, but not quite, huh?
Yeah, almost.
And you got it in good, and he hit the jack. It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, you know, I got lucky a few times to still be in the tournament earlier, so, you know, that's part of the game. Sometimes you're gonna win when you're behind, ahead. Sometimes you're gonna lose, so, you know, would have been nice to win that pot and make the final table, maybe make the money and win, but not meant to be. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Can't win them all. Well, it's always great to see you play. Thank you so much, Jason. And that is it for us. Now our Alpha 8 is set. So be sure to join us next time for continuing coverage from WPT Alpha 8 Las Vegas. For Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet, I'm Lynn Gilmartin. Good night. Brains, bravado, and a big-time bankroll. In Las Vegas, the world of high-stakes poker is not for the faint of heart. This is WPT Alpha 8. Bright lights and big money make the Las Vegas Strip one of the world's most electrifying destinations. And it's here at Bellagio where the talented and brave risk it all to be part of the elite world of high-stakes poker. I'm Lynn Gilmartin, ready to bring you VIP access to WPT Alpha 8, our exclusive super high roller Texas Hold'em tournament. We're at the top of day 3, and tonight's players have all paid at least $100,000 for the privilege to battle among the smartest and most competitive poker minds in the world. Here to navigate us through tonight's plays and potential pitfalls, our A8's own well-versed commentator team of Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet, over in the club at WPT.com Skybox. Guys, what does today hold in store?
Well, Lynn, we've got 8 players, but only 6 spots are going to get paid, which means heartbreak for 2 players is exactly what's in store as we inch closer to the official money bubble and then burst it. And that's when you're going to get a piece of that over $5.3 million that were collected, courtesy of 55 entries and 44 unique players. A record-setting event here in Vegas. Olivier, talk to me. We have an incredibly talented field of 8 at our final table right now. Phil Locke, first off, one of the old school types, and everybody else much newer school.
Yeah, Phil Locke, known almost as much for his table antics as he is for his poker prowess.
And then you've got Noah Schwartz and Bryn Kenny.
2 solid, experienced pros.
Brandon Steven,
technically the amateur recreational player at our table, but he's got a lot of poker experience, especially in these high rollers, almost $2 million in earnings. So the players definitely need to watch out for him. He's no soft spot.
Jason Leff, he's in for a couple of bullets.
Television viewers might not be as familiar with Jason, but he is a well-known and well-respected heads-up player on the internet.
And the guy they call Czar Rast, Brian Rast, in seat number 6.
Brian is probably our most aggressive player, and he is also our chip leader. And as we approach getting into the money, that will be a huge advantage for Brian.
And last but by no means least, we've got Tom Marchese and Andrew Lucky Chewy Lichtenberger.
Yeah, ironically, these 2 guys, both very close friends and probably the 2 best and toughest players remaining in the field.
Button is going to be on Jason Less. Brian Rast and Tom Marchese are in the blinds, which are 15 and 30,000 with a 5K ante. Rast up to over $4.5 million in chips. The short stack belongs to Phil Locke. Look at the cash, the watch, the trophy. Plenty of prestige associated with taking down an Alpha 8 event, and certainly more than average here in Vegas with the largest field ever assembled.
Yeah, these fields are filled with such tough competition that being able to navigate your way to the end and coming out on top is definitely an added bonus to the big cash.
Yeah, really can't take anything away from anyone who holds an Alpha 8 trophy, even though the fields are not thousands of players like some of these World Series events, because it's really the cream of the crop. Brandon Stephen with King Queen offsuit raises it to 80,000 in the cutoff. Button and small blind fold over to Tom Marchese with ace-5 suited in the big.
Pretty easy defend here from Tom. 80,000? Just getting a good price and has a more than strong enough hand.
He calls the 50,000 and he'll be heads up out of position heading to this first flop. And it's ace jack 4, all clubs. Marchese has out flopped Stephen. His pair of aces out in front, and he checks it to Brandon, who has the Broadway draw, but no club in his hand.
Yeah, I like continuation betting here if I'm Brandon. If Tom doesn't have an ace or a club, it's very tough for him to continue.
Stephen bets 105,000.
Of course, we know Tom does have an ace, so he's not going anywhere.
Nope, makes the call, and we'll head to the turn. Board pairs with a 4, which improves Marchese's hand.
Yeah, now his 5 is irrelevant. He's playing the jack as his kicker. Tom checks. Staying in flow in the hand, and Brandon decides to check and not continue. I don't mind this play from Brandon, but I think if he checks on the turn, he should probably just check and give up on the river.
8 of spades, Marchese checking one more time.
Not particularly credible to try to go for a bet here.
Try telling that to Brandon Stephen, who bets 165,000.
165? I mean, this play could work if Tom just had a hand like maybe jack 10 with the 10 of clubs, but I can't imagine Tom folding an ace here, especially since his weak kicker is not really relevant anymore.
Yeah, he's reaching out.
You win. Nice hand.
Sticking 165 in there for the call. Brandon says nice hand, slides his cards into the muck. And the one-time card player, player of the year, and WPT champion, Tom Marchese, with over $7.5 million in live tournament earnings, showing us that that was no accident.
Tom Marchese, in my opinion, estimation, the kid's just a super genius. It's like, I think he could see my whole cards when he plays. I mean, he just knows how much to bet, when to bet.
He'll change gears and go from playing tight to playing aggressive. He has no problem flatting pre-flop or 3-betting.
He really understands the game on a deep level. I'd rather be hanging out with him than seeing him at my table.
Lots of flattering words there for Tom Marchese. Have you played with him much, Olivier?
Yeah, I've played with him both online and in live events, and I just echo the sentiments of those players. Tom has for many years been one of the toughest competitors out there. He really understands how to play, and you rarely see him ever make a real mistake.
Over $7.5 million in live tournament earnings at the ripe age of 27. That's no accident. Ace-8 for Jason Less, and he just throws it in the hijack.
Yeah, I think part of the reason Jason does that is because Brian, as the chip leader, has position on Jason. And if I'm Brian, I'm going to be putting a lot of pressure on the medium stacks, on the guys exactly like Jason Less. Somebody like Phil Locke or Noah Schwartz, who are a little shorter, they know that they have to kind of take some chances and potentially get a double up before they can cash. But someone like Jason is pretty assured to cash if he plays tight. So Brian should go after those players.
Chewy defended with pocket 5s against the pre-flop raise of Brian Rast, and look at the board. 10-9-5, 2 spades, gut shot straight flush draw for Rast, who's had the action checked to him by Chewy, who flopped a set of 5s.
Now, knowing Chewy, even though this is a very draw-heavy board, he is much more likely to just check and call than he is to check and raise. The reason he does that is because he wants to disguise the strength of his hand, he wants to allow an aggressive player like Brian to keep bluffing, and because he wants to be able to play some weaker hands in the same way, so he needs some stronger hands to offset that.
Betting a call of 95,000, and now the turn, a 3 of hearts.
Great card for Chewy. I mean, it doesn't complete any of the obvious draws on the flop.
He checks again over to Brian.
Now, Brian still has a ton of equity with his straight draw, flush draw, and overcard. And I like this bet from Brian. He'll get a lot of hands from Chewy to fold, some weak pairs, maybe some ace highs or weak draws.
Rast keeping his foot on the gas to the tune of 265,000. Chewy makes the call. Pot up to 925K. Here's the river. It's a 6. Swing and a miss for Brian Rast. And Chewy checking a 3rd time. decision time for Brian Rast. Do you wave the white flag of surrender and give up on almost $1 million in this pot, or do you fire that third barrel?
I think you have to fire if you're Brian. Obviously, that's the only way he can win the pot, but he's shown aggression throughout the hand, so he can represent a number of strong hands. We know that Chewy has a set of fives and is not going anywhere, but there's no reason to assume that. Chewy could easily have a draw that's missed or even a weak pair of nines or tens, and that'll be a very tough call for him to make given Brian's level of aggression. So I think it's a good play for Brian to bluff. We know it's not going to work, but that you can't be results-oriented in this game.
Well, Brian's making what, Olivier, you call the right decision, but something we know is going to yield the wrong outcome, at least in his mind. Betting $620,000, Andrew comfortably making the call, and 3 nickels will take the pot.
And the real question for Chewy was just whether he was going to call or raise. At this stage in the tournament, so close to getting into the money, I think it makes sense for Chewy just to call. There's no reason to take a risk that Brian happens to have a better hand. I think both players played that hand exactly how I would have, you know, as well as they could have. Just a little bit unlucky for Brian to run into a big hand and to miss his draw.
Yeah, bluff's not working so far in the action here in Vegas. Alpha 8 is sponsored by ClubWPT.com. Fun, exciting poker you can play for free.
Don't have the dough for a high roller buy-in, but still want to get in the game? Log on to club.wpt.com and play for free. Become a VIP member and enjoy insider benefits. Plus, take a shot at a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes every month. Win at clubwpt.com, but never lose a dime playing poker, guaranteed.
All the people in the tournament, they're having a good time. It's so much different than all other tournaments.
Most tournaments, you sit down, and it's funny, like the smaller buy-in you get, the more serious people seem to be.
In a $1,000 tournament, you'll see people get upset, even rich people.
But here, like, everyone's kind of like upbeat and friendly.
It's completely fun, and it's a great tournament to play.
Even for me, Olivier, when we sit up in the skybox and we look down on these youngsters who are playing for millions of dollars, literally, the amount of comfort and relaxation that at least ostensibly they're demonstrating is really impressive.
Yeah, their experience and their dispositions just lend themselves to just, you know, not getting nervous, feeling comfortable. And this is, you know, another thing is a lot of these players are just grateful that this is what they get to do for a living. I mean, they get to play a game. They don't have alarm clocks or bosses. This is their job. This is their livelihood. And it's just, it's a lot of fun, and it's a life that a lot of them have wanted to live, and they're at the highest level. So it's great to see them comfortable and enjoying themselves.
While it may be just another day at the office, it is a dangerous office. Some days you go to work and you might leave $100,000 or $200,000 behind. We head down to the felt where the action's been folded around to Jason Les, who has Jack 10 suited and will open this pot with a raise to $75,000. Les nearly missed this event. He was in Southern California. He was on his laptop at a coffee shop. Looked on worldpokertour.com, they were showing live updates of this event, jumps in his car and makes it just in time to register on day one, busts out, and now he's on a second bullet for $200,000. Folded around to Andrew Lichtenberger, who has 4-5 suited. And he is going to call another $60,000 from the small.
Chewy decides to call with this relatively weak hand from the small blind. I think the reason he feels comfortable doing that is because Chewy plays a slightly different style from some of the other pros. He's willing to just call with some of his weaker hands and then also some of his stronger hands to try to balance it out. So, you know, we'll see what the flop brings, but I think that's why he feels comfortable playing this weak hand even from this weak position.
And that sort of consistent approach is key to making it difficult for opponents to read your hands. Chewy flopping the wheel draw, ace through 5. He needs a 3 to complete it, checks it. Over to Jason Les.
Jason doesn't flop much, but he does have 2 backdoor draws, and he decides to continuation bet. Pretty standard play here.
Yeah, $105,000. Called by Chewy, and there it is right away. The 3 of clubs on the turn, giving Chewy the nut straight.
And also giving Jason a jack-high flush draw, so this card could spell a lot of fireworks for these two.
Les firing again, $150,000.
Now, keeping with this consistency theme for Chewy, I expect him to just call even though he's made the nuts here. That's how he would play some of his weaker hands, maybe a hand like 9-10 suited or ace-10. So I expect him to just call like he does with the nut straight.
And in this way, he can induce a possible river bluff out of Jason Les, as we see the 5 hit the river, which isn't Chewy's favorite card.
Yeah, it's also not Jason's favorite card. I mean, Jason could definitely consider giving up here, but at the same time, this is going to be one of the worst hands that he has in the situation. And from a theoretical point of view, it makes sense to bluff with some of the worst hands that you have.
Les has fired $200,000 after having it checked to him a 3rd time. Can't resist the temptation of trying to take this pot down with the bluff right here.
And I like this bet sizing from Jason. He doesn't feel the need to go for too much. He understands that he can represent a hand like ace-king or ace-queen or some random 2-pair, and it'll be very difficult if Chewy has just a 9 or a weak ace. Now, we know that Chewy has a 4, and he's decided to check raise pretty big here.
$715,000 total. No chance that Jason Les will be able to continue with his jack high.
Right. It would be a much more interesting spot if Jason did have, let's say, 2-pair or ace-king, because Chewy, with his chip position, being the chip leader, is in a position to try to put pressure on some of these medium stacks.
Yeah, pressure indeed, as he is making medium stacks into small ones with plays just like that. And the rich keep on getting richer. Chewy up over $4.5 million now, courtesy of that pot. He is the chip leader. As we get a look at Brandon Steven, Brandon owns 3 ECHL hockey teams, also the president of Brandon Steven Motors out in Wichita, Kansas.
Brian Rass raising it up with 7-5 suited. I do not like this play very much. I think it's just too weak of a hand, especially since Brian's not the chip leader anymore, and this player, Lucky Chewy, picking up 2 kings, he's the one that has the chip lead.
Yeah, and he's elected to just call.
Like we said before, Chewy plays a little bit of a different style. He definitely is capable and does 3-bet from time to time, but he's much more willing to just call with some of his big hands. It allows him to call with some weak hands, even though now we know that he has a monster.
Yeah, and Bryn Kenny doesn't know that he has a monster, but he does know that this is the exact sort of situation that is so tempting for a couple of jacks to make a squeeze play.
Yeah. Squeeze play, we know means when there's an initial raiser and a caller, and you make an additional raise trying to squeeze both players out of the pot.
300,000 is the number from Bryn.
Now, Bryn with 2 jacks, he understands that Brian is raising a lot of hands, that Chewy could have a big hand when he flats, but is more likely to have a weak hand. So I like this play from Bryn. He's building the pot with his good hand, and we'll see how Chewy decides to play it.
Well, he got Rast out of the way, but now that Andrew has decided to call an extra 230,000, what sort of hands is Bryn putting him on?
So I think Chewy's likely to have some sort of pocket pair, or maybe some big suited cards, a hand like, you know, ace, queen of diamonds or something like that.
A hand that hasn't necessarily connected with this flop. 10, 8, deuce, a couple of spades.
It's a very dangerous flop for Bryn. Obviously, he has an overpair, but so does his opponent, who has a bigger pair. So it'll be interesting to see how the turn and river affect the texture of the board, but this could be a very expensive situation for Bryn Kenny.
Well, so far, 265,000 additional chips have been invested by Bryn, and Chewy just calls.
Yep. Staying consistent, Chewy elects to play relatively passively. It's important to note that Chewy is also in position, which makes it easier to play passively because you're given the opportunity to make the final bet in the hand.
Turn card is a 5 of clubs, and now Bryn takes his foot off the gas.
Yeah, so it's a very difficult spot for Bryn. He's playing against the chip leader, a player who's in a natural position to put a lot of pressure on him. He does have an overpair, but this pot is huge, almost 1.3 million chips in there. So I like this check from Bryn. I can't imagine him folding on this turn card, but once he calls, depending on what the river will be, that will be where this hand really gets interesting.
Chewy, after having it checked to him, bets 390,000. What do you think of the bet size?
You know, in 3-bet pots, bet sizes tend to be a little bit smaller. These guys are pretty deep, so, you know, Chewy just trying to build a pot, trying to keep Bryn in there. I like this bet. It's not too small, but it's also not so large that it scares Bryn away.
Mission accomplished as Bryn slides 390K of his stack into the middle. This pot up over 2 million, Olivier, and the river, a 4 of hearts.
Terrible card for Bryn. If Chewy did have some sort of straight or flush draw, it has now missed, and Chewy's the type of player to take a shot when he's missed a draw. So it's going to be very difficult for Bryn to get away from this hand. It's just going to be a tough spot. He knows he doesn't really beat anything, any value hands. He only beats bluffs.
Yeah, the bet is $930,000 on the end. You can't blame Bryn Kenny for being just the slightest bit uncomfortable here.
Call.
And he says call. That'll cost him almost $1 million more as he gets a look at two kings. And over to the chip leader goes a massive pot.
Very, very nicely played hand from Chewy, maximizing his profit, winning an absolutely massive pot with just one pair. Obviously a favorable situation since his opponent had an overpair and all the draws missed, but still, a very well played hand from Chewy.
And some of the finer details that separate the top pros from just the average pros. Your ability to not only get the good hands, but make the most out of them. Millions still at stake here in Vegas. Welcome back to World Poker Tour Alpha 8 at Bellagio. Olivier, the final table is heating up. The real story, Andrew Lucky Chewy Lichtenberger with over $6 million in chips, really dominating the opposition.
Yeah, Chewy running well and playing even better. It seems almost impossible for another player at the table to even win a hand.
Should we just stick his name at first place right there for $2.1 million?
Well, as we know, in poker tournaments, things can change very quickly, and as the blinds go up, you got to continue to get lucky to end up on top.
The four players on the relatively short stacks right now, Noah Schwartz, Bryn Kenny, Brandon Stephen, and Phil Locke, all really looking to hit a hot streak at this point and get some breathing room as the blinds escalate. Those blinds at 15 and 30,000 right now with an ante of 5K. Every orbit is going to cost them 40,000 in antes and 45,000 in blinds. That's not cheap poker.
And the thing that's really tough about having four relatively short stacks is that two of them can feel comfortable that they'll make the money as long as the other two bust. So it incentivizes all of them to basically play very tight.
King Jack suited for Andrew Lichtenberger, made it 75,000 to go, and now to Brandon Stephen, who has King Queen offsuit in the small blind. Stephen really sweating this decision.
Yeah, it's not an easy decision with King Queen off. The last thing you want to do is go all in, get snap called, be way behind, and end up bubbling.
Yeah, he's got just over 20 big blinds and decides to take a pass, and a good thing he did because Jason Less has pocket queens in the big blind.
I think Jason has two legit options. I mean, I might just consider calling here from the big blind and playing a small pot out of position against
Not
Chewy.
Jason, though. He's made it 280,000, Olivier.
Yeah, perfectly legitimate 3-bet. Obviously, his hand is very strong. And Chewy looks like he wants to keep playing. I mean, Chewy must be really feeling it here because I don't think Jason is ever out of line at this stage in the tournament from this position.
Yeah, a big call. But Andrew likes playing in position.
I mean, Chewy's hand is pretty good, don't get me wrong, but I just think Jason's range here is very, very narrow, very strong.
Well, here comes the flop, 9-7-4 with a couple of hearts. And Jason is taking his foot off the gas right away. But that check allows Chewy to check behind and hit the best hand with the king of hearts. Jason checks again.
More passive play from both players. This pot could be much bigger than it is.
Yeah, Chewy checked behind and now hits two pair on the river, but a fourth heart on the board. Could Jason bluff?
Well, I don't think Jason feels the need to bluff. I mean, there's no reason for him to think his two queens aren't good if Chewy doesn't have a heart. There's no way for him to know that Chewy does have a king, much less two pair here.
And Les has checked it over to Chewy.
And yeah, Chewy decides his hand is not good enough to try to bet for value and hoping he just wins, which he will.
And that was a bit of an unorthodox approach to the pot on the flop there by Jason Less.
Yeah, I think he felt a little bit uncomfortable because he had bloated the pot so much with his 3-bet.
While Jason Less might be feeling uncomfortable, Lucky Chewy is nothing but.
Chewy, I don't know, he's sort of mysterious.
Chewy is loving life. He's down for anything. He's completely nature, vegan, just always smiling.
He's a very calculated player. He really takes his time with decisions.
The kid just has results, you know, he's just constantly there in a lot of tournaments, and, you know, he's one of the best tournament players.
Yeah, obviously he's made quite the impression on his peers, and we touched a little bit on his evolution. How much of a part do you think this sort of spiritual journey he's been on has played in his success at the Feld? It's tempting to think that they're irrelevant matters, but, you know, Chewy will tell you otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Chewy for a while. I actually spend a lot of time with him each World Series. I really enjoy talking poker with Chewy. He's one of the favorite people to discuss poker hands with. And I think his evolution has helped his poker game really just in the sense of helping him be at peace with himself, helping him be calm and be consistent with his decision-making. I think from a strategic, high-level theory point of view, Chewy's always been at the top of the game. But helping him achieve a state of calm and peace at the table has helped him get to that even higher level that he's been able to achieve.
And I gotta tell you, we're not sitting at the felt with him. I know you've done that before, but even here in the skybox, it's pretty intimidating. The guy is just so calm on the felt and really taking it to the rest of the field right now. Action folded around to Tom Marchese, who has hard 6, pocket 3s. And Marchese makes it 65,000 to go. And it looks like we'll have a new winner in this particular pot as Chewy lays down, to the relief of all the rest of the competition.
Very magnanimous of Chewy to let someone else win a hand.
Yeah, we talked about the spiritual journey. He understands every now and again you gotta let somebody else win. Now to Noah Schwartz with pocket 4s, the Miami Beach resident, a World Poker Tour champion. He was actually a highly recruited pitcher coming out of high school until an elbow injury freshman year ended his baseball career. Heads up against Marchese and the flop, King Jack 10 with a couple of diamonds.
Very connected board here. I'm not surprised to see both players check.
And the turn card, a 9, even more connected.
Yeah, now of course any queen makes a straight. And Tom with his hand, it's very weak. Obviously, if he bets here, he's betting it's a bluff. And I think it makes sense, just given Noah's check twice, he feels that Noah's probably hasn't connected with the board and that he can steal the pot.
Tom bets 85,000.
Pretty tough for Noah to do much here. He's represented no hand, and it wouldn't be entirely credible for him to check raise. Pretty tough for him to do anything but fold here.
You win, Cheesemeister. Fold.
And that's exactly what Noah does. Losing a small one. Marchese will happily accept the spoils.
That play from Tom known as a delayed continuation bet, when you check the flop, wait for a second check from your opponent, and then go for a bet on the turn.
At one point in poker, that would have looked phenomenally weak, but once people start to employ it, when they have stronger hands, it garners more respect.
2 offsuit napkins.
Fold it around to Chewy. And he's gonna sit this one out too.
I might have raised that hand with the chip stack that he has. I'd be putting a lot of pressure on the rest of the table.
Yeah, his table image really solid right now. As we see Phil Locke moving all in with pocket 6s for his last 435,000.
So Phil Locke with about 11 big blinds from relatively early position. At this stage in the tournament, already a relatively tight player. This is a very strong range. I think this is probably one of the worst hands that Phil would do this with. He'll probably do this with medium to big pairs, and that's probably it.
Oh, and Jason Les tends to agree as we see him send ace-jack suited into the muck from the small blind.
Had a feeling I was going to get a sweat. I'm telling you, these cards feel very powerful, so let's see what we got. I felt good. Ooh. I feel like you're probably not going to like me very much, buddy. I'm sorry. Let's gamble.
What is Brian Rass doing? I mean,
He's calling.
This is an atrocious play. I really, really don't like this play at all.
I would have called with Jack 9. Well, boys, I really want to win this one.
I think he's just misunderstanding what Phil's range is here.
Which way do you turn? Does it come that way? I probably should sit down, right? That's what the new kids say. The up-and-comers. Like, you know, like you might have another hand.
Here comes the flop. It's an ace and a couple of 5s, a great one for Phil Locke.
If there's any time not to just gamble, it's near the end of a huge buy-in tournament.
They're not slow rolling us. They're doing this for the cameras, just so you know.
Let's take a look at the turn. It's the 10 of clubs, and all Phil Locke needs to do is dodge a jack or a 9, and he'll be doubling through.
This is where I feel like the most equity. Oh.
Here comes the river. It's a jack!
Oh. Well done, buddy.
Wow.
Wow!
That's gross.
That's the hardest lump to get, the last Billy Goat.
That is pain. That is poker pain right there. Phil Locke, always a very, very gracious, one of the most gracious losers I've ever seen in poker, taking it really well.
Well, Locke, needless to say, had designs on doubling up, and instead it's a visit to Lynn.
There was only 2 individuals, the next one will be declared, who get to play for 3 days
and busted the nugget. It's like, no, it's okay.
It's so
I had
tough.
a lot of fun. It's nice when you get close, and it's nice when you win. But at least it went to Rask. King Rask can, you know, he just got crippled a few hands, so at least he can go to a good spot.
We are officially on the money bubble in Vegas.
Learn to play poker like our Alpha 8 high rollers for free at clubwpt.com, where VIP members can watch past episodes, read insider tips, and study up on the pros. Everyone has a chance to win a share of $100,000 in cash and prizes only on clubwpt.com. Get in the game today.
Yeah, it's all about getting in the game, and the easiest way to do that, as you know, Olivier, is simply to log on to clubwpt.com.
On clubwpt.com, you can play fun, exciting poker with your friends for free.
And if you really want to enjoy all the special benefits of Club WPT, you can become a VIP member.
And at clubwpt.com, you can enjoy unlimited poker and play for a part of the $100,000 in cash and prizes that are given away each month.
Yeah, you can even win seats to big WPT events, so get to your computer already and log on to clubwpt.com. And while you're doing that, we're going to check out our Alpha 8 Vegas prize pool, $5.395 million split up in 6 directions. And you see 7th place there. Good for how much, Olivier?
A big old donut.
Yeah, goose egg indeed. And one of these 7 are going to be sitting on that. Currently closest to taking home the donut, Brandon Steven on the short stack with $765,000. But by no means out of the woods, Bryn Kenny, who's not far ahead of him with 8 and change.
And I can tell you from experience that is not a good position to finish in.
Yes, of course.
Hurts. That is
Olivier
pain.
finishing 4th in St. Kitts when the top 3 were being paid. As we get a look at Noah Schwartz's hand, pocket 10s, action folded around to him. Blinds at 20 and 40,000 and the ante at 5K.
Obviously a big hand, but still kind of an awkward spot for Noah. I mean, I might even just go all in with this hand for 25 big blinds. Noah electing to make a raise, probably the more standard play, but I really wouldn't mind if he just put his chips at risk and forced one of his opponents to come up with a premium hand.
Yeah, Noah starting this hand with 1 million in chips. Not the most breathing room. Action folded around to Andrew Lichtenberger, who's in the big blind on the big stack.
Chewy in the big with Jack 9. I can't imagine he'll fold here.
You can't just let it go?
You can, but...
It's a mistake? It's inappropriate?
Yeah, the math says I think you should call, and Chewy with all his chips, he is able to put a lot of pressure here on Noah. Noah's not going to be able to fade too much pressure considering how close we are to the money.
6-5 tray rainbow. Chewy checks, and Noah checks back.
Yeah, I don't like this check. Definitely just a function of being on the bubble and not wanting to face a check raise from Chewy.
7 rolls off on the turn, and now Chewy putting pressure on Noah. As you mentioned, betting 120,000. Schwartz making the call, however, with 4 to a straight out there, and we'll take a peek at the river, which is the 4 of diamonds.
Wow.
And now there's a straight on board.
Yeah, so if neither player has an 8, they're going to chop this pot. And as we see, neither player does have an 8. If I was Chewy with almost 500,000 in the pot and Noah with about 800,000 back, I would probably just go all in here. And if Noah doesn't have an 8, he just can't call.
And Chewy's going to bet 320,000, and that is a sinking feeling in the pit of Noah Schwartz's stomach.
At the same time, though, Noah can call, and if he's wrong, he still has some chips left. I really don't like this bet by Chewy. I think maybe the reason he does it is because he thinks that maybe Noah does have an 8, and if he does, he'll get away only losing 320.
Board.
Schwartz makes the call and is relieved to hear Andrew say board.
Thinking about it, I was pretty close to ripping it in. I just know he had like the Jack 10 or the Jack 9, but maybe the Jack 8.
But Schwartz really stuck himself in that situation by checking back on the flop.
Yeah, he did. And again, that's just a function of being on the bubble, how much pressure there is, and how much money difference there is just from getting 7th and 6th. I mean, it messes with your mind. It makes you play hands in ways that you wouldn't normally play. Sometimes it's good strategically, but in this case, and also with Jason Less with 2 queens earlier, I think those were real mistakes that these pros have made.
I didn't notice it either. Yeah, it's the difference between walking away negative 100,000 or more, depending on whether or not you've re-entered, and being at least positive 323,000. Schwartz laying it down this time. Over to Brandon Steven, who's got ace-queen offsuit.
They were like, some guy ripped off.
I'm all in.
Really? I don't know.
I'm all in.
And he's gonna go all in.
Yeah, so Brandon with just under 20 big blinds, about 19 big blinds, decides to go all in with ace-queen. Can't really blame him. It's a pretty good hand.
2 10s making another cameo, this time in Brian Rast's hand.
And no need to re-raise. This is a large enough initial raise that Brian's call will look very strong to the rest of his opponents.
755.
Yeah, we talked about the squeeze play earlier. This is not one of those situations in which that applies. The size of the raise is just so massive.
I was going to be in a tough spot in the big blind. Ace queen.
You have ace queen? You have ace queen too.
And it'll be heads up with Brandon's tournament life at stake.
Tens is the hand of the day. And yesterday I won a pot with tens. It feels hard to beat tens.
Can he connect with an ace or a queen on the flop? No, he can't. It's 2 deuces and an 8, and it's an uphill climb for Brandon Steven.
Oh, you do that slow. That's like,
And 6 outs wants to stay alive. It's the 7 of diamonds. Brandon Steven sent home. The quote amateur is going to be our dreaded bubble boy.
Tough situation for Brandon. Played well, made it as far as he could, but ultimately came up a little bit short.
Yep. Now we are down to 6 players, all of whom will be vying for a piece of the $5.395 million prize pool. Next up, $323,000 payday, but that's not what you want to be thinking about chipping up, is it? You want to have your sights set on that number one $2.1 million first place prize.
Yeah, some of these conservative plays that we've seen thus far, I expect not to see going forward. Everyone is feeling much more comfortable. They're in the money, and like you said, they're looking for that first place prize.
With Brian Rast eliminating his good friend Phil Luck and Brandon Steven back-to-back, we now have 2 dominant chip leaders in Lucky Chewy and Rast. Guys, how does this change the dynamic at the table?
Well, honestly, I mean, I think the main thing that changed the dynamic at the table is that we've burst the money bubble. That is going to make it so that the small stacks go from playing very conservatively, trying to sneak into the money, to now playing much more aggressively, willing to get their chips in the middle, trying to double up and give themselves a chance to win that $2.1 million first place prize.
Yeah, but on deck, it's the $323,000 and change for 6th place that will be awarded. And when you say small stacks, Olivier, we're talking about Bryn Kenny, who's got $1 million in chips, and Noah Schwartz, who's got $940,000. And that's a pretty big sum for any of the medium to large stacks to give up if those players decide to ram and jam.
Right, absolutely. Even with their small stacks, both Brian and Chewy, the big stacks, are going to need a real hand to look them up.
Blinds at 20 and 40,000, ante at 5K, Jason Less on the button. Rast and Marchese in the blinds, leaving Lucky Chewy first to act under the gun. 3-4 offsuit, return to sender. And now Bryn Kenny with Queen 10 offsuit. He's going to put 10% of his stack to start the hand into play right now in the form of a raise to 100,000. Gets through a couple of players, make it 3, and back around to Tom Marchese, who looks down at 2 7s.
So Tom in the big blind is getting a good price. I think Tom could reasonably call or try to put pressure on Bryn. I probably would just go all in here and force Bryn to have a real hand, but Tom electing to just call and see a flop.
Yeah, he's going to be forced to play out of position here. And the flop, King 10 deuce. A pair of 10s for Bryn Kenny, the best hand right now.
How much in blues is that cheese, like 10?
Exactly 10.
So Bryn with middle pair here and no heart decides to check back. I don't mind this play. I think it's fine.
And the turn card, a 7 of spades. More than fine if you're Tom Marchese.
Yeah, very unlucky for Bryn for Tom to just turn a set here. And after checking the flop, I don't think it's reasonable for Bryn to just let go after 1 bet.
150,000 is the size of that bet from Tom.
Fortunately for Bryn, he is, of course, drawing dead with just 1 pair and no heart.
He's made the call. He can always try to bluff his way into this pot. The river, the Queen of Hearts, 4 hearts out there.
This should be a card that will just kill the action. Tom's 7 of hearts is not really strong enough to bet for value, and Bryn will think with his 2 pair he's got a good enough chance to just check and win.
7 of hearts.
Kenny hoping, obviously, that 2 pair were good there. Marchese takes that pot down and puts Bryn Kenny in an even worse spot than he was just moments ago.
That was a strong turn. Yeah, it's a nice looking turn for you. Bad looking river.
Millions still at stake here in Vegas.
Winning a big hand in Vegas is every poker player's dream. Now you can take the fun of Hold'em anywhere you go with Club WPT Express Poker. Grab your iPhone and download Club WPT Express Poker from the App Store. It's fun and free. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and play.
Welcome back to the World Poker Tour Alpha 8 final table here at Bellagio, where the story at this point, given that we burst the money bubble, is the two short stacks of Bryn Kenny and Noah Schwartz, sitting on $850,000 apiece, roughly. Olivier, are they going to be leaning on one another and hoping for the other's demise so they can chip up? There's over $100,000 prize money difference between 6th and 5th.
If I were in either Bryn or Noah's shoes, I would definitely be a little bit more willing to get my chips in. I'd be aggressive, trying to double up and give myself a chance for that first or second place prize money.
Aggressive and not conservative.
Yeah, that would be my approach at this point. You're already in the money, you're already guaranteed profit. The money difference between 5th and 6th seems like a lot of money, but it's much less than the money difference between 6th and 7th, and much less than the money difference between 1st and 2nd. So I would definitely be going for the top 2 spots.
Andrew Lichtenberger, action on him. He is the massive, overwhelming chip leader with almost $6.5 million in front of him, and he's going to put some of it to work right here with 8-6 suited.
I'm all in.
Pocket jacks for Bryn Kenny, who instantly moves all in for $845, and Noah Schwartz has 2 queens.
845.
Very unlucky for Bryn that Noah Schwartz, right behind him, wakes up with 2 queens.
All in.
Noah re-raises all in.
Now over to Jason Less. Takes a peek at pocket 9s and with a quick and easy fold.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hand you could consider, but ultimately I think you have to decide to let it go, and Jason just did that quicker than most would have, I think.
Lucky Chewy lets it go as well, leaving these 2 short stacks to duke it out. Jacks against queens. Schwartz, the overwhelming favorite heading to the flop. Kenny is going to need some help. He does have Schwartz slightly covered, but it's not going to mean much. Whoever wins this pot, likely to send the other packing. Ace, king, 6 on the board. 2 queens still looking good.
No real help for Bryn there.
Yeah, Kenny knows he's in trouble. Needs to hit a set or a runner. Here comes a turn. It's a 7 of clubs, no help. And now it's 2 outs once for Bryn Kenny to stay alive. No, it's the ace of clubs, and he's down to just 5,000, Olivier.
Yeah, it's something you rarely see when a player is down to just the ante. Obviously, it only happens when 2 players are all in and their stacks are close enough. And this is what happened here. Bryn Kenny and Noah Schwartz both waking up with big hands, big enough to get their stacks in. Bryn just on the unfortunate side of that cooler.
Yeah, and on the fortunate side, Noah Schwartz, who's going to have some breathing room moving forward. Actually, some play to his stack.
Jeez, you fold the ace-4, kid. You got nuts, double knockout.
Kenny not bothering to look at his hand as he is all in for the ante. Still 40,000 to go for the rest of the field.
He's automatically all in. Bryn doesn't have any options.
Couple of folds over to Brian Rast. Still 40,000 to go. The man they call Cheese, Tom Marchese, limps in with ace-4 offsuit, and Andrew says run it with king-8.
And I can't imagine either Tom or Chewy bluffing ever at this pot. They're going to want to make sure that they give themselves the best chance possible to bust Bryn and move up in the money.
Ace-Jack 6 on the board, top pair for Tom. He's going to fire 50,000. Quick fold from Andrew.
What do we got, Cheese?
And Bryn says, what do we got?
That's going to be a tough hand to beat with 2 random cards.
It's aces against Queen 7. Bryn in trouble. Just 3% to win the hand.
Bryn has to hit 2 cards in a row.
Will he get help on the turn? Or will the river be just a formality? Bryn's up out of his chair. But it ain't over yet. 10 of diamonds, Olivier.
Yeah, one of the best cards you could see. Now Bryn has a gut shot. Any king would give him the best hand.
And the river card. It's the 4 of diamonds. And that's it. Bryn Kenny is your 6th place finisher, taking home $323,000 and change, and leaving 5 players left at our final table.
Yeah, and not just 5 players, but because the 2 shorter stacks got all in versus each other, now we have no short stacks left in the tournament. And as we move forward, that should create for a really interesting dynamic with deeper stacks and this high caliber level of field remaining.
And let's head down to Lynn Gilmartin, who's with Bryn Kenny now.
Oh, Bryn, that's got to be a painful chip in a chair, huh?
Whatever, that's poker.
Yeah.
Play well for 2 days, make a mistake, and tournament's over usually.
Yeah. And the good news is that you've tripled your money.
As long as you could laugh about it, that's the only important thing.
Exactly. I'm impressed. You're smiling. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bryn.
Thank you.
And well done. Congratulations on
Great,
6th place. That is it from us here at Alpha 8 Las Vegas. Make sure you stay tuned as we continue our coverage next time. For Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet, I'm Lynn Gilmartin. Good night. In the world of high-stakes poker, winning the jackpot takes a lot more than just pushing a button. You need the backbone to bet and bluff your way to riches. This is WPT Alpha 8. Las Vegas and the fountains of Bellagio provide the perfect welcome to a world of absolute luxury and indulgence. It's here where the excitement of high-stakes poker is at home. And tonight, we are closer to finding out who will become the next A8 champion. I'm Lynn Gilmartin, here to bring you VIP access to our continuing coverage of WPT Alpha 8 Las Vegas. We are at a crucial point in this competition. Let's get right to the electrifying action with A8's own high-rolling experts, Ali Najad and Olivier Bousquet, stationed over at the club WPT.com Skybox. Hi, guys.
Hello, Lynn. The big story here today, obviously the $2.1 million in prize money that will be going to first place, courtesy of that over $5.3 million prize pool collected via 55 entries from 44 unique players, 39 of whom have been shown the door. We are down to just 5 hopefuls. $431,000 will be going to 5th place, but of course, it's first that everyone has their eyes on right now. Olivier, what are your thoughts about these 5?
All right, well, first of all, like you said, these guys are playing for a lot of money. The entry fee was huge, $100,000, and there was a huge field. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that normally at this stage in a tournament, there's at least one relatively short stack, and that really affects the play. It makes the middle stacks forced to play a little bit more conservatively as they try to chip up, and it gives the big stacks an advantage that can put pressure on the middle stacks. At this point, though, we have 2 chip leaders, Brian Rast and Andrew Lichtenberger, and we have 3 essentially middle stacks, Noah Schwartz, Tom Marchese, and Jason Les. All 5 players are elite professional players. There are no soft spots here. So the players are going to have to really play their best and get lucky to try to get that $2.1 million first place prize.
If you're one of the middle stacks, though, your job is a little different than the big stacks.
Yeah, and it also depends on where you're seated. I mean, if I'm Tom Marchese, I got to play a little bit more conservatively. Chewy, our chip leader, is on my left, and then the most aggressive, loosest opener, Brian, is directly on my right. However, if I'm Jason or if I'm Noah Schwartz, I'll probably play a little bit more aggressively. I'll take a few more chances because there's no one that's immediately in danger of busting, so I'm going to try to chip up and give myself a chance to actually win the tournament.
Let's look at the actual stack sizes. You see the leader, Lichtenberger, $6.185 million, followed by Brian Rast at roughly $4.5. And then it's just about $2 million for the other 3, Noah, Jason, and Tom. As we send it down to the final table, where the blinds are 25 and 50,000, the antes are 5,000, and the mood is light, Olivier.
What do you say?
Yeah, the mood always gets a little bit more comfortable and casual after that money bubble burst.
Not the amount of relaxation you might be expecting out of 5 players who are battling for $2.1 million in first place money.
At the same time, though, everyone is in the money now. Everyone's guaranteed a pretty nice profit, so there is going to be some level of comfort that didn't exist before we burst the bubble.
Yeah, 5th place worth $431,000.
If I do it again, he's going to be the cheese.
Tom Marchese has opened the action with a raise to $115,000 with pocket 3s, and it's pocket 6s for Jason Les.
Nice looking hand in the big blind. Very easy to defend.
Yeah, it's a shame because I went 5 more than I wanted to. I got that extra 5 out of him.
Les with the huge advantage
Wow.
until, of course, you see that flop. Quads for Tom Marchese. And Jason Les is just 1% to make the best hand.
Absolute monster flop, obviously, for Tom, and he does check it, hoping that Jason will either take a shot or hit a hand on the turn.
Turn card produces a third heart.
Now, if I were Jason, I would almost always lead here. Interesting check, very conservative play. Maybe he was suspicious that Tom checked this relatively dry flop with 2 3s on it.
Marchese bets 135,000.
Jason seems very locked into this hand. He's really taking his time here.
And
Wow.
Les just lays it down.
I gotta say, from a theoretical point of view, if you were just describe that hand in a vacuum, almost no one would advocate making that fold. I would have to say, Jason, with the experience that he has, maybe he had a read in that situation, or he just felt the situation being at the table with Tom. I have to give Jason a lot of credit. That was a really impressive fold.
You and I talk about how hard-working a lot of these players are, and one of the ways in which they've been putting in work is in that arena that you talked about, reading other guys at the table.
Yeah, and you know, the reality is, after you've done something and put a lot of time and effort into getting good at something like poker, you develop this sixth sense, this intuition, and this feel for situations, for players, and maybe Jason was just, you know, using that intuition that he's developed over time to make that decision, and it ended up being a great one. A really impressive fold.
Noah Schwartz on the button with ace-3 suited, makes it 110,000 to go. Now to Jason, who just made that very impressive read with king-10 offsuit in the small blind. If you don't know who Jason Les is, well, it's his first Alpha 8 appearance. He's an online high-stakes heads-up cash game specialist. Started playing live high roller events just last year and has made the call here, which invites Brian Rast into the pot. Les started playing poker at UC Irvine. He actually graduated with a computer science degree, was going to be a software engineer, but he knew he loved poker too much to do that. Swing and a miss for all 3 players on this flop, which is queen 7-6.
Check.
Couple of hearts checked around.
No one has any pair, any real draw here.
Turn pairs the board with another 6.
I think if any player showed any aggression, they would win this pot, but a little bit unlikely that any player does, simply because they really don't have much of a hand, any equity, any real chance to make a hand.
Checked around again, and now 3 on the river.
So Noah improves his hand to a pair of 3s, but from a relative point of view, it's unlikely that Noah didn't have the best hand on the turn and that this 3 has now made him the best hand.
And Jason Les bets 140,000. He says, if you guys don't want the 355K in the middle, I do. Rast lays down, and now over to Schwartz.
The only problem with this bet is that Jason isn't representing too many hands. I guess he could have a 7, maybe even a hand like 2 8s, maybe a weak queen, but from the small blind, I don't think that represents a big percentage of his hands. So I think Noah's instincts are pretty good to consider calling here.
He's reached out and grabbed enough for that call, and he's going to slip it into the middle. A look at king high, and shows Les the ace-3.
Nice call there by Noah Schwartz.
Not a bad bet by Les, or would you have maybe favored checking after you've already checked the flop and the turn?
I probably wouldn't have made a standard size bet. I would have bet pretty rarely in that spot, and if I did, I probably would have made an oversized bet to make it look like I had I'd been planning on trapping the turn, and since no one bet, I was trying to compensate by getting extra chips in on the river.
Action on Les.
That's a very interesting fold from Jason Les.
Yeah,
I mean,
pocket 3s right into the muck.
Now, Jason might be playing a more than a normal conservative style just because Brian is on his left, and Brian's a very aggressive player, but I'm not sure I fully agree with folding a pocket pair there.
Brian has made it 115,000 to go on the button with his ace. And now over to Chewy, who's got 3-5 offsuit, but will defend.
Yeah, Chewy has an enormous amount of experience playing heads up. He's got the most chips at the table, and since he already just calls with most of his strong hands, he's probably going to be able to feel comfortable playing his weaker hands the same way.
Look at this flop, Olivier. Ace, 5-3, both players with 2 pair. Rast's aces and 5s better than Chewy's 5s and 3s.
And depending on how the board runs out, this is almost always just going to go check, bet, call, check, bet, call, check, bet, call. And Chewy should lose 3 solid bets here. Really unlucky cooler for Chewy here.
Yeah, so far it's 110K for Chewy, who checked, let Brian bet, and call, just like you said, Olivier. And again, he's checked the turn after the jack shows up.
And we've seen throughout this tournament, that is the style that Chewy likes to play. And to be honest, it's a style that many pros are utilizing.
A little over a half pot size bet from Rast, 270,000.
And there's just nothing Chewy can do except for check call in this turn. The only way he can get away is if the river is a jack, maybe a 5.
And Chewy makes the call for 270. And here comes the river. Oh, it's a 5. Chewy has hit a full house, 5s full of 3s, but Rast has him crushed with 5s full of aces.
So obviously this is the worst possible card for Chewy. I mean, now he's trapping. Now he's probably going to check raise here. And, I mean, they might get all in. I mean, this is an incredible card.
Rast bets 640,000.
Big bet here from Rast. But again, Chewy's loving it. I mean, Chewy just made a full house. Chewy does decide to raise, and he does have a full house.
Yeah, he's made it $1 million more for Brian to call.
I'm all in.
Rast moves all in.
Yeah, of course. Brian, with 5s full of aces, really not afraid of Chewy either having jacks or pocket aces himself, so deciding to go all in. And Chewy is just in a terrible spot here. He knows he doesn't really beat any, but at the same time, his hand is just so strong. Brian is a pretty aggressive player. The pot is already so large, it'll be very tough for Chewy to fold.
Not impossible, though?
Not impossible. I mean, that's why he's taking his time. If anybody can make this fold, it's him. He understands that his hand, even though it's so strong, given the action, is now just a bluff catcher. He just wants to make sure there is a chance that Brian could have pocket 3s. There is a chance. He does beat that hand. Now, we actually know, ironically, that pocket 3s have already been folded.
Yeah.
Jason Les had pocket 3s, and if he was in this hand, this would be an absolute monster pot. But I just think Chewy's hand is fold.
I have ace-5.
Chewy says, I can't beat that. Lays down the 5s full of 3s.
And just like that, last stack basically swapped. Chewy started the hand with about twice as many chips as Brian. It was about 7 to 3.5. And now Brian's going to have 7. A couple reasons why he does this. First of all, a lot of players have been playing their big blind like just calling with a bunch of strong and a bunch of weak hands to try to be balanced. Wow, big flop for Noah Schwartz here.
Yeah, trip aces with the king kicker for Schwartz, who checks it. And this is actually not a terrible flop for Rast.
No, it's actually a good flop for Brian. But I think another reason Noah just calls here with ace-king is because Jason Les has actually become a little bit of a short stack. He has a little bit over 20 big blinds, and so Noah wants to make sure he doesn't take any big chances and to try to give himself the best chance of chipping up if Jason does bust.
Well, a check raise from Noah after Rast bet 110,000. Schwartz makes it 240.
This is a very interesting play. Noah has a very, very narrow range here. There just aren't very many hands that he would play like this. He's not representing much, and Brian with a pair, I think, definitely has to call this raise.
And he makes the call for another 130,000. But what do you do on the turn if Schwartz bets big? Which is another ace, quads for Schwartz. And this is actually a really bad card for Brian Rast insofar as him being able to get away from the hand, isn't it?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I think if Noah bets this turn card, he just knows it looks really fishy. I don't think he's going to be bluffing with too many hands. I don't think he would take a flush draw and go crazy with it once Brian called in this ace turn.
What is it, 260?
$260,000 is the number. And Rast makes the call.
I think it shouldn't be too tough for Brian to find a fold on the river.
6 of diamonds on the end, 1.28 in the middle. And what sort of number are you coming up with if you're Noah Schwartz?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Noah, I'm hoping that Brian has a pretty big pair. And, you know, if Brian has kings or queens or something like that, you know, I'm probably betting at least 500,000 to 600,000.
520 to be exact.
Yeah.
Why not overbet?
It's 520, right?
Just because you know that your opponent rarely has a hand, your